Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Hello, Lex.
Hey, Joe.
Before we get started,
Yeah.
how about that Colder Wall guy that I just played for you? How crazy is it? He was 21 when he made that song.
Is he close to 21 right now?
He's 25 now.
Yeah. He sounds like Johnny, like later Johnny Cash.
Like Johnny Cash when he did Hurt,
yeah.
you know?
So like a pain,
Yeah.
a depth, a richness of his voice, so badass.
It's weird. Like how do you get that at 21?
I want to see him at like 14. He probably developed early, probably went through some shit in his life.
Oh,
There's got to be some whiskey in that story somewhere.
Oh yeah. He had to go through some real shit to have that voice and that just the sensibility, just the mindset of those songs. You know, that Kate McCannon song, like Jesus Christ. You have to listen to the whole song. It's crazy.
Yeah, one of the things I hope, like with your Spotify thing, is that you'll be able to play songs.
We want to, but it's weird. It's like they've left open this, they're trying to figure it out, right? All this stuff is basically, there's a lot of work in progress. They're trying to figure it out.
Listen, my dream here at Spotify, if you're listening, my dream as a little boy is to play Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix on the Joe Rogan Experience, and not be like nervous about it being like taken down or something because I don't have the rights to cover the song or whatever.
I wonder how that works for the artist. Well, for someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix, they're both dead, so it would be the estate of the artist, which oftentimes I believe probably makes it more slippery.
Yeah.
Because then you're dealing with people that, you know, kind of own it as a commodity rather than the actual artist itself.
But there's a difference between like the Beatles and then the Stevie Ray Vaughan. Because whoever owns Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, is like a bad, like mother effer. Like you know, they're not gonna. It's not like corporate.
You would hope so, but you never know, man. I mean, he might have had an ex-wife who sold it, or who knows, you know.
Anyway, Spotify, please make it happen.
I almost had the opportunity to drive Stevie Ray Vaughan once when I was driving limos.
Oh wow.
Yeah, man, but he wouldn't take limos. He would always take a cab. So they'd have a limo, and the limo would pick up everybody else. Like all the other band members, all the other people, that they would get in a limo, and Stevie Ray Vaughan would get in a cab because he's that motherfucker.
Yeah, just for the first time, actually. Yeah, he is. He's real. He was real. He's a genuine human being. I just for the first time listened to like an interview with him. Like I've never heard Jimi Hendrix really talk or Stevie Ray Vaughan talk before this interview, and he was really drunk in the interview, and then I realized that there was a man behind the music. There's some pain, there's some drinking, and just I don't know, demons that he was running from.
I think there's like a disconnect that you almost have to have from the normal mind to create that kind of sound.
Yeah.
There's like when you go to there's some Hendrix songs, like Voodoo Child is a great one, right? The sound in that guitar is he's so out there. He's so wild. You know, there's like a famous story where Eric Clapton first saw Stevie Ray Vaughan play, and he was like, "What in the fuck am I doing?" Can you imagine as good as Eric Clapton is singing? Did I say Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix? I meant Jimi Hendrix.
No, you said Jimi Hendrix.
Did I? Okay. Yeah. But that Eric Clapton went and saw Jimi Hendrix play live and was, you know, he was such a talent that everybody else was like, what are we doing? Like
Yeah, the cool thing is, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix both play a Fender Strat. So it's the same guitar. So I can imagine, and then Eric Clapton has this like warm, smooth tone. And I could just imagine Eric Clapton singing like, how the fuck did he get that sound out of that thing? How did you pull that off?
Well, it's still, Eric Clapton has some amazing fucking songs, an amazing sound. I mean,
what's that?
Layla, that song Layla, god damn, is that a good song?
Yeah. Both acoustic and electric. He has an acoustic version.
Oh, really?
MTV used to do this thing. Unplugged.
Yeah.
So he played like Tears in Heaven, which is hard when he
lost his son, right?
Yeah.
His son fell off of a balcony.
Yeah. There's so much pain in that song.
Oof.
And then there's the badass songs. What is the whatever.
Cocaine. Down. Yeah, I mean, the thing about his music versus Hendrix is it was brilliant. I mean, Eric Clapton is, I shouldn't say was because he's still alive, is a brilliant musician. Brilliant. But the sound falls in line, meaning it all seems brilliant and purposeful and uniform, and the songs are amazing, but it falls in line. Whereas, there's shit that Hendrix would do. He was out there. Yeah. It was like this new thing, man. It was just, he was gone. And he was fucking in his 20s. Yeah. He died, he was 27 years old, which is so crazy.
And technique-wise, I mean, I know you don't play guitar, but technique-wise, he just didn't follow any conventions. He was just like, he had this like thumb, he put it over the top, and just like, it was messy. And the way he played rhythm wasn't how anyone played rhythm. It wasn't like 3 chords. It was 3 chords, but every time he played those chords, they're always different. They always messed with it. He always like threw in a little chaos. And there's songs like Machine Gun. I don't know if you know that one.
Yes, I love that song.
Just like, where did that come from?
There's so many of his songs that like if 6 was 9. Like that song. Like, what is that? What is that? Like it's a lot of it is drugs. That's the truth. Yeah. I mean,
that's the sad truth.
Yes and no. I mean, it's sad in that he's not here anymore. But it's not sad in that what he accomplished in his 27 years on this planet still to this day haunts guitarists. Yeah. Like, if you ask professional guitar, there was a million brilliant guitarists. I mean, there's so many. Some people are big fans of Eddie Van Halen. I mean, I think to this day that Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Voodoo Child is, it's you always have to give the best credit to the original, which is Jimmy. But Stevie Ray Vaughan's Voodoo Child is fucking amazing. Yeah. And it's him. It's clearly him. Yeah, he's playing it with his tongue. I mean, I've said it a million times. I named this podcast. I stole the name from Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. The Joe Rogan Experience came from the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Yeah, nothing like him.
I just always been oddly attracted to him. That's a weird word to use, but that's what it is. Like, attracted to his music and like him. There's something about him that just always resonated with me. The old studio, I had the Hendrix mugshot up, and
he also represents the '60s, and also this psychedelic thing experience, like not in this like cheesy way, but like in a really out there way. Genuine.
Yeah, authentic.
I mean, is the fun tension, because you're a health guy. You talk about like how to be healthy, how to almost like have a balance, but then at the same time you say that you celebrate the self-destruction that led to the genius of Jimi Hendrix.
It's not that I celebrate the self-destruction. The self-destruction is an unfortunate aspect of that path, right? And there's a lot of weirdness to Jimi Hendrix's death. I don't know if you know, like, he had a gangster manager who apparently had him kidnapped just so that he could rescue him and convince Jimmy that, he was his savior. There's a book that was written on it that accuses this manager of killing Jimi Hendrix and saying that they also threw his girlfriend off a roof, and she did either jump off a roof or was thrown off a roof and died shortly afterwards because she knew too much or whatever. Who the fuck knows? It was one of Hendrix's bodyguards or someone who worked for the manager that wrote the story. But the thing about that path, the path of drugs and destruction, it's been a path of many of my idols, whether it's Kinnison or Richard Pryor or even Hicks. Hicks died from cancer, but a lot of that is probably attributable to him chain smoking and just a lot of drugs and stuff when he was younger, and just destroyed his life. And then it's also like pancreatic cancer is a genetic thing as well. You never really know what's causing pancreatic cancer. But
your conversation with Mike Tyson actually symbolizes this in a really interesting way for me, because here you have like one of the greatest fighters ever, who somehow found inner peace through the whole like marijuana thing, but just the way he was behaving just was positivity and just this good vibes putting him out there. And yet he now, for at least brief moment in his life, rediscovered the darkness. Like I was watching your podcast with him, and the moment when you said, like, you were like having another level chat, he just took you like a few levels up by saying like that, you know, when he thinks about hurting people, sometimes it's
orgasmic.
It's orgasmic.
Yeah.
And you try to laugh it off, but there's like memes of he's like, no, I'm serious.
Well, I mean, I was laughing. I mean, I wasn't really trying to laugh it off. I was laughing at the madness of it.
What did that make you? By the way, Donald Trump retweeted that clip of that. I don't know what to make. Politically, I don't know what the context of that. But he retweeted Mike Tyson saying it was erotic.
Trump's like an old comedian who just happens to be president. I mean, really. I mean, the same kind of behavior that a comedian has. The timing, like his timing, like when the thing about Hillary Clinton, you'd be in jail. Remember that? The timing of that, when they were doing a debate and she said something about him being...
It's painful to... I went back and watched those debates. It's painful to watch. It makes me... As somebody who wants to see truth and positivity win out in the world, it pains me to think about the debates between Biden and Trump.
I don't think they're going to happen.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think. I think the people in the Democratic Party are too wise. I think it's possible that Kamala Harris might debate Pence. I think that's probably, and I think she'll do really well against Pence. Pence is a bit robotic and careful, and and evangelical, and is super Christian. I think she'll probably do very well in those debates. Especially, well, there's no audience. See, that's the thing, man. Those debates, a lot of it was like getting them zingers in.
Yeah. I think Trump needs an audience. Like a comedian, you said, I think he needs it
would certainly help.
Crowd to work off, to work off of.
Dude, how do you say Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend's name? Kimberly, how do you say it?
Like Guilfoyle, I think.
Is that Guilfoyle?
I don't. I'm
the way it's written is like, why are we pretending that this is like the correct use of these letters? Because you shouldn't put all those letters together like that. Like, fix that. But there's a great video that someone put together, and I retweeted it or reposted it, of her screaming this message to an empty room. And then there's a beaver on the top of a mountain.
Yeah, I saw it.
This is the thing that happens.
The internet is amazing.
The internet's the best. It's undefeated. There's a thing about doing stuff in like audiences. Like, here it is. Play this. Because it's so good.
Your destiny. You are capable.
Oh, this isn't the right one.
Oh, it's still just... Find it on my Instagram. It's on my Instagram. But it's so funny because it's like people are doing stand-up these days on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's bad. Like, really good comics look terrible doing stand-up to no audience. Yeah, it's just not how comedy's supposed to be. It's like... It's like, you know how you have a battery and you're charging a battery, you have to put something on the... Here, play it real quick. It's so good.
Leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream. The best is yet to come.
There's something about a beaver screaming at the top of his life. On the top of a mountain. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
It's 2020 in a nutshell right there.
But it's so perfect. That beaver by himself on the top of that mountain just screaming. But
timing is genius.
It's amazing. Whoever made that, thank you. Thank you. Whoever you are. But there's comics that are doing stand-up in these Zoom things, and it's like you know how you charge a battery? You have to connect the positive, and then you have to connect the negative. You know, there's two cables that you have to connect the two of them together. If you only connect one, it doesn't work. Well, that's how it is with stand-up. You have to have an audience. It's one of those art forms that you need to have a reaction. The people have to be there. You feed off of them. You create comedy with them. And in a lot of ways, one of the things that Trump does outside of these speeches and get everybody excited about things, he's doing stand-up. He tells jokes. He talks shit. He gets laughs. Like they were saying, like there was an interview with one of the debates. You've said terrible things about women. You've called women pigs. You've called them this. And he goes, wait. Only Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah. He says this, and the audience goes crazy and laughs. Yeah. They're told to not respond. They're told to not respond. Yeah. The audience are told not to laugh. They can't help it. He just nailed it. He fucking nailed it, and it's like a comic.
Old comic.
And I don't know if he's the same guy as he was back then. Just honestly, just being honest. The same way I would talk about a fighter. Like, Father Time wins every time.
If you listen to interviews with Donald Trump, maybe from the 90s, he is a different guy.
Yes.
He's much, like, sharper. I mean, listen, I don't want to be ageist,
yes.
But, like...
It's not ageist. It's just reality. I mean, no one gets better when they're 100. It's not like the guy's 100 and all of a sudden he runs faster, he talks better. He's reading more and writing more. He sees better. No, we're dying. We're all dying slowly, okay? And I don't know what kind of pressure being the president is, but I can only imagine. It's almost unmanageable. And he's managed it better than anybody I've ever seen. But the reality is it's still pressure. It's still Father Time wears on you. The river beats down the rocks and smooths them out. There's no way around it. It is what it is. So whether or not he's still got that kind of timing, that's a real question. But if him and Biden get into a debate situation and he hits Biden with a couple of zingers like that, I mean, I don't.
Well, so how do you think Biden might get out of the debates?
He's gonna have to get out of the debates. I mean, if they're smart, if I was a Democratic strategist, there's no fucking way I would let him debate. Yeah. Like, listen. We're winning because the only reason why people are winning, the only reason is because they want Trump out of office. You could have, if Pete Buttigieg was in the position that Biden was in, it would be, he would have a much stronger, much stronger response from people, right? Young person, speaks well. If Tulsi Gabbard was in that position, dude, she could be president. I know that the Democrats, for whatever fucking reason, didn't want her to be, but if she got into that position when she was debating, if she was debating with Trump and people saw her and saw her record, saw the fact that she served overseas twice, saw the fact she's been a congresswoman for 6 years, saw how well she speaks, how honest she is.
Yeah, and just the integrity of the character that you can see in the way she carries herself.
100%.
See, one of the big problems is the Democratic nomination process happened before coronavirus.
Yeah.
So, like, we were in kind of relaxed. The economy was doing well, but, things are going just regular. And so you kind of, the boring generic candidate won out. What we need now is a great, like, inspiring leader.
Yeah.
Not somebody who is, Joe Biden's strategy currently is to just sit back and don't say anything and let Trump destroy himself.
Well, every time he says something, he jumbles his words up and he fucks things up and he forgets where he is. And it's like, he's had multiple brain surgeries.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can play you some shit. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy. Here, Jamie, have I ever played you this one? I'm gonna send this to you, Jamie. But
But the contrast with, like, Andrew Yang, I don't know if you listen to Andrew Yang these days, but Andrew's like teeming with ideas,
yes,
with energy, with excitement, with a passion of different ways, things we can do. That's what we need now is an inspiring leader that unites. Brett Weinstein is on his big, as he talked about on your podcast, like uniting, having basically a center left and a center right candidate, just uniting the nation.
Yeah, I'm sending this to you right now, Jamie. Sorry.
But yeah, so
I love
uniting
Andrew
the
Yang.
nation versus
I think he's
dividing.
Andrew's a really interesting guy. Like he's not the standard, like what you're looking for from a guy who's running for president. One of the biggest things he's known for is universal basic income. He's basically saying, hey, guys, look, automation is coming, and there's going to be a lot of people out of work. And how bright does he look now that we have seen that not automation, but the pandemic took out so many of these jobs, and we did need universal basic income. It really was important. Right. And that same sort of a situation could happen with that next. I mean, from what we're dealing with now to what we could be dealing with another pandemic plus automation, you're going to see a lot of people that are out of work. And it went from a place of people wanting economic prosperity to, hey, let's just make sure that people don't lose their houses. Let's make sure that people can eat. Let's make sure that people have a roof over their head. And that's really where we were in the middle of the pandemic.
But the big thing, whether you agree on like automation, universal basic income or not, it doesn't matter. The point is, besides UBI, he's a source of a giant number of ideas. And he presents them in a way, not saying Republicans are wrong and Democrats are right, but saying, let's together figure out which of these ideas are right. He basically has an idea for everything. The purple belt, jiu-jitsu,
yes,
like that. That's even more brilliant than UBI. Now in this divisive time of policing,
right?
Have every cop get a purple belt.
Yeah, at least a purple belt.
Yeah,
from a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor.
Maybe blue belt, second stripe, like learn a triangle.
Yeah, well, know how to defend yourself. I mean, there's so many ridiculous videos I was watching. There's an account I follow on Instagram called Police Posts. And it's basically a police-oriented Instagram page. It's like 4 cops, educating cops, and talking about situations. And they show a lot of like situations where cops overestimate their ability to handle things physically, and they get fucked up. And one of them today was this guy gets rolled over and beaten up. He just doesn't know what he's doing, and and that wouldn't happen if you were talking about someone that's a purple belt.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard in some places like New York, rear naked chokes
they're illegal.
Illegal now, which is like
ridiculous.
Which we should expand the jiu-jitsu training to the people in government too, because it doesn't make any sense. It's one of the most safe ways to pacify somebody.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the Eric Gardner situation, right? Where that guy got. But the thing about the Eric Gardner situation is they should have never fucked with that guy, and they should have never manhandled him in the first place. Forget about choking him. They should have left him alone. Yeah. All the guy was doing was hanging out in the corner selling loose cigarettes. Now, I have a cough button. Hold on, let me try it.
Did it work?
Better.
Jamie?
Yeah, all the other
Sorry,
mics picked it
but
up.
the other mic picked it up. But the thing
we should press it like in unison, yeah.
Contrast this idea that they were going after this guy for loose cigarettes based on what happened after the George Floyd protests, where people were smashing windows and stealing things out of stores, and the cops were just standing there, right? Because shit got so crazy that they let people just loot and smash windows and steal things. Meanwhile, they killed a guy who was just selling loose cigarettes. Yeah. All he was doing is standing there. He presented no threat. He was just trying to make a couple bucks selling cigarettes, and they grabbed him, threw him to the ground, and were choking him. I think that in public perception.
So what's the solution to that? How do you get those cops out, those humans out?
I think you need way better training, and you need a lot of training. And Jocko Willink talked about it, and he had a great position. He thinks that they should be spending 20% of their time training. And this idea of defunding the cops, he goes, no, you need more funding. You need more funding and more training. And you need to get rid of the ones that suck. And you need a really stringent process of elimination. The same way they have in the SEALs, same way they have in the Rangers. You get rid of the people with weak character. And there's a lot of people with weak character that wind up being police officers. And those are the ones that you're seeing. But there's also a lot of people with strong character that do an amazing job, and no one cares about that. You don't get a lot of those because what we're seeing is the videos that go viral are almost always bad. There's one really good video from the beginning of the George Floyd protest where this one cop in Flint gets together and says to this group of people that's protesting, "We're with you. We will march with you. Like, we're not in opposition. We're in this community, and I'm here to be your friend. I'm here to help out." And that's what we're here doing as police officers. And they hug this guy, and they're all hugging each other, and then they walk together. It's beautiful. It brings a tear to your eye. That's what we want, right? We want people that are police officers that are that have like strong character, someone who's like an exceptional human being. I think that's who you have to be to have that job.
And defunding the police is not a solution to that in any kind of way. No. I mean, this is what I think most people probably don't realize is, it takes an exceptional human being to be a police officer, in a sense that you have to be, especially in these times, you have to be patient, because basically a large percentage of the population is at best skeptical, at worst hate you. And
especially now.
Especially now. And during all that, you have to still maintain calm. You have to establish control. You have to help people. You have to serve the community. All those things. It takes an exceptional man or woman to do that. And it's depressing to think, because the exceptional humans in our society, who would want to join the police force now?
Well, I talked about this with Edward Snowden recently. And one of the things that we said was that what really needs to be done is we need to do something at the root cause of it. Like, why are there still these deeply impoverished communities in this country that haven't changed since the 60s? And there's been no work done to try to improve them. Or whatever work has been done has been ineffective. They're still crime-ridden. They're still gang-ridden. They're still filled with violence. Like, that's why there's so much crime. There's so much crime because there's so many communities that it's just like deeply entrenched in what they are, whether it's south side of Chicago or parts of Detroit. I mean, if you want to lower crime, you have to increase economic opportunity. You have to increase education. You have to make people feel like they're in a safer environment. You have to do something to make these neighborhoods better. Now, I'm a moron. I'm not the person to figure that out. I don't know how you make a neighborhood better, but it's not impossible. And when you look at the amount of money that they spent on stimulus to try to help these businesses during the pandemic that were suffering, like, why couldn't they do the exact same thing in the past to these cities? Why couldn't they treat that like a pandemic of violence and crime that needs to be remedied?
Yeah, the sad thing about the way the stimulus is being distributed, at least my worry is that it creates a greater gap in wealth disparity versus a lesser one. So all the problems you're mentioning, it's only going to make them worse. So people who are not well off are going to become worse. The opportunity for jobs is going to be lesser. The opportunities for people who are going to lose their businesses, that means their dreams are broken essentially, and the people who worked for the people who ran the businesses are going to not have a job, and all of that creates a greater disparity within those communities, greater desperation. And then desperation, I've been reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Great book. I recommend it highly. It talks about the 30s and the rise of Hitler in Germany, and the pain, both economic and psychological, turns into this like dark energy that can be combined with a charismatic leader to go into a direction of hatred versus love and progress. And that's terrifying. I don't think we have a competent charismatic leader that would do that in the positive or negative direction, but I do hope a leader arises that uses that energy of pain, that to do something good in a positive way. And we need that. Like, I think people don't realize how much pain there is being experienced right now. Like, most people in real pain don't have a podcast, don't have a voice. And like, they don't have a job, and everyone's kind of in this holding position. But the reality is, like, once the economy opens up slowly and slowly, there's going to be that the remnants of the pain experience in this year is going to be there. People have lost their savings. People have lost their dreams. That materializes itself, just like it did in Germany, in bitterness and hatred. And that can create revolutions. That can create unstoppable destructive forces, especially when combined with an ideologue. That's terrifying to me. People should definitely study. There's this discussion of Hitler recently, that everyone says either Obama is Hitler or Trump is Hitler. It's kind of...
Who said Obama's Hitler?
When Obama was president, that was...
Really?
Yeah. Because I mean,
what the fuck?
People. This is what people do. I mean, using the military-industrial complex to control the population, that kind of idea. And that the thing is, you have to separate Hitler, the evil person that created the Holocaust, from the general evil, charismatic leader that took the country into used nationalism to take the country into a dark place in the 30s. Those are two different stories. I don't think we're going to have ever something, hopefully, any atrocity like the Holocaust. But it's possible that the pain that people feel will be taken would be taken advantage of by a charismatic leader to take steps back, not forward. And that's a real worry.
I don't see that leader on the horizon, but the other problem is even a positive leader. The way politics work in America, everyone is so accustomed to people chopping people down. So much so that one of the things that it's weird about Kamala Harris being with Joe Biden is that, she was talking like terrible things about him during the primaries. I mean, when she was running against him in the primary, she said horrible things about him. And then when they brought it up on the Colbert Show, she was like, it was a debate.
Yeah.
It was a debate. Like, is that what a debate is? Like, by any means necessary, you'll distort your own views of a person in order to diminish that person so that you can succeed and they fail. Or do you really mean that? And that's why you said it in the debate and you're willing to compromise whatever your ethics or your morals or whatever your perceptions of this person are because you want to be vice president. It's one or the other. Either one's not good. And I think it speaks to the standard way that people debate and that people run for president in this country. It's about tearing the other people down. It's not about what you can do, what you want to do, what's your vision. It's about how bad that other person's going to do at the job, how bad that other person has done at the job. What a terrible person they are. Let's distort their character.
Yeah, so turning it into a game, a rap battle. I mean, my worry is that we're going to get in 2024 or 2028, Donald Trump Jr. versus like AOC. So you basically take like the most entertaining Instagram accounts or whatever, and the most divisive ones. Who's going to have the best memes of tearing each other down? It'll become a reality show. And of course, the media would love that because it makes... It draws more eyes because we generally are drawn to controversy, to drama, and funny drama, like this kind of shallow, derisive kind of conversation, basically trolls on both sides.
Yeah.
We're drawn to that, as opposed to the Andrew Yang type folks who are like, let's all get along and let's hear some ideas.
That's why he's so refreshing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it also, he's an entrepreneur. It's a different kind of human being that is running into the race. He's not a career politician. He's a guy who genuinely thinks he can help.
Yeah, and young.
Yeah.
Young. There's something to that, just that fresh energy.
100%. Not compromised, too. Not compromised by that fucked up system. When you deal with someone like Joe Biden, who's a 50-year politician, like, my God, like it's so entangled. You're so crusted into that.
He probably doesn't even he's almost unable to think original thoughts at this time because you've been in the system for so long. You can't like sit back, the Elon Musk style, think from first principles, like, okay, here's a new problem. What are the ways we've been doing it previously? It hasn't worked. How can we do it differently? Let's all cut the bullshit. Look, I know there's a bunch of like ties, lobbyists, money interest. Let's put all that aside. How do we, like, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to represent the people. We're supposed to do something great for this country. How do we do that? And fire, again, this is a destructive, creative destruction. Fire everybody has the entrenched old school assumptions that haven't worked. Fire everybody and hire new energy.
Well, you'd have to revamp the system too. So there's so much to do.
Well, this is the time to do it. I mean, and there's a hunger for that. I think there's a hunger for a populace that wants to revamp the system.
Just a matter of whether or not they'd actually be able to do it. I mean, there's so many checks and balances in place to sort of prevent that from happening because they're worried about someone doing it for the wrong reasons.
Well, if there's a positive view on our current president Donald Trump, is he showed that you don't have to follow the rules.
Right.
You don't have to follow the rules of the system. You can just fire everybody. The checks and balances, you should ignore them.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be inspiring to positive leaders. Say, you know what? Even if I'm young, even if I'm an AOC type character or whatever on the right, even Donald J. Trump Jr., Donald Trump. Is he also a J? I don't know.
Well, he's junior, so he must be a J.
Okay. Is that okay? Yeah,
the way junior works, you have to have the same middle name as well.
It has to be a perfect match. Okay.
Yeah. I believe so. Isn't that correct?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right. So yeah, that should be inspiring to young leaders to say you can revamp the whole system. That was one of the criticisms of Barack Obama, is that he talked about change and he hasn't really changed much.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible to change.
I think there's something gross about juniors.
Yeah.
Just the name, Junior. Like, how can you be your own fucking person?
The third, the
Yeah.
fourth.
Oh, God. Thurston Howell the third.
It's like the queen.
Like from
Kings.
Gilligan's Island. Yeah, it's weird. Like, come on, Dad. Can you come up with another fucking name, you unoriginal twat? You know? How about give me a different name?
Yeah.
I got to walk around with Junior?
Donald the Fourth.
Lex Fridman
King.
Jr.
Yeah.
This little Lex.
Yeah. And have like multiples. Lex the...
Yes.
I like the sound
and
of
he
that.
has a Lex.
Yeah.
It's a tradition.
And
How about George Foreman? You know he names all his kids George?
George?
All of them.
That's...
I think even his daughters.
Really? That
He doesn't
can't
give
be true. That cannot be true.
It's true.
And then you have, on the opposite side, Elon Musk, who names his kids
Fucking
random
a
letters
jet
of the
and-
alphabet.
Yeah, he named his kid after a jet and all kinds of other weird
They're
shit.
not all. He's named a few daughters, other things apparently.
Oh, George has?
Yeah.
Well, he's got a lot of kids,
But
right?
there's a Georgetta and a.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird move.
Ms. Pat had something on her Instagram about NFL players yesterday. About like 7 NFL players have fathered 52 children from 48.
There was one guy who had like 26 kids a couple years ago or something like that.
So crazy. Teach that man about condoms. Good Lord, sir.
Yeah.
There's no way you're taking care of all those kids.
This one has 14.
Someone has 14 kids?
He has $350,000 or so a year to support 8 of them. He has to pay. Like
Only 8 of them?
Well, man.
What about the other ones?
Hey, they all got different deals, I guess.
Oh, boy. It's too easy to make people. You know, the problem is it's pleasurable, and we're all like super drawn to it because it's part of our DNA to be sexually attracted to whoever, and that's how you make people. It's crazy. It's like hunger making people.
Yeah.
You know, it's because people used to die so easily because we don't run fast, and you know we're basically like water balloons.
And die at birth, like close to at a young age, often because just medicine advanced so much that we're able to save kids. Just
Sure.
Nutrition, infections, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into this carefully, but
Okay.
there seems to be a lot of debate about whether to worry about overpopulation or not. Like I've posted these like projections of the population when we're going to reach 10 trillion billion people, and there's a lot of debate of whether that is like we should be worried about or not. On the one side, the natural carrying capacity of Earth, people say that we have way more resources than we need. It's not to worry about. It's nothing to worry about.
But it's about how those resources are allocated, right? It's
Right.
like some places are very resource poor, but they have high populations, and that's a gigantic problem.
And most of the population growth in the 21st century will be in Africa. Like if you look at the models, and Africa will have, I believe, more people than the rest of the world by like the end of the century if the population continues. Like this, if you talk about large families, they're happening in Africa.
The thing about Africa, though, is it actually can fit most of the
it's
world
crazy.
in it. When you realize how big Africa is, I had no idea until we started doing this podcast, and Jamie pulled up this image of like Europe and Asia and the United States and all these other countries stuffed into the continent of Africa. It's only then you realize how big Africa actually is. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, space-wise, but
yeah.
But also resource-wise, there's a lot of people suffering in Africa. That's something that we keep a blind eye to, but there's real suffering, poverty.
It's interesting that some animals have mating seasons. You know, like deer have mating seasons. They go into the rut in the fall, and then the does are in estrus, and they give out the scent, and the bucks go crazy, and they're chasing them all around, but they only do it once a year. Yeah. And then in the spring, they give birth to the new fawns. And this is like, it's really common in the wild for animals to have a season.
Do chimps?
No.
No, I wonder if
people.
No. I wonder if there's ups and downs. Like, so humans have like a mating season around like Christmas, the holidays, and then it goes down in the January month.
I think it's only game animals, meaning animals that are prey. And I think predators just go buck wild. I think predators breed whenever the fuck they want to. You know, I don't know if that's true though. I mean, I don't know like if like lions and tigers, for instance. I know I had a bit that I used to do about tigers because I watched this Discovery Channel show where they said when the female tiger is in season, the male can mate with her as many times as 52 in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, so they just get after it. But I don't know how long that lasts, like when they're in heat.
Jamie, could you look up the mating seasons for lions, please?
Yes, please. Here it goes. In captivity, lions often breed every year, but in the wild, they usually breed no more than once in 2 years. Females are receptive to mating for 3 or 4 days within a widely variable reproductive cycle. During this time, a pair generally mates every 20 to 30 minutes with up to 50 copulations for 24 hours. Whoa!
That sounds weirdly like my life, actually. Once in 2 years. It's good.
Well, maybe you're a predator, sir. Yeah, well, but it's interesting the reproductive cycles. It's like it's not predictable like a prey animal, you know. But I would also think that nature probably over the course of millions of years balances that out with overpopulation. Like they realize, like, hey, if there's too many lions, like what eats lions? Very few things eat lions, right? It's occasionally a hyena will get one with a broken leg and they'll take it out. But the reality is mostly it's lions doing the eating. So like you can't have too many of them.
Yeah.
But like deer and things like that, well, fuck, man, they make babies and then they can like literally overwhelm a resource area if there's no predators. So you have to have predators. So there's like some sort of a balance, like nature sort of figured out the best way to keep the animals healthy is to only have them breed once a year.
Yeah, it's amazing how evolution finds a balance for all
I think
kinds
you
of
mean
environments.
God, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I'll let you get away with that.
God and Jesus,
Don't you know we're in Texas, bro?
Yeah. Guns, God, America.
Yeah.
Whiskey, Scotch.
It is amazing. I mean, natural selection and just evolution in general is so fascinating.
You know what's amazing is I talked to Sarah Seeger. There's this whole group of people that look for life. I don't know if you know what exoplanets are.
Yeah.
They look for life out there. You know, some people think that there's Jupiter, moon of Jupiter. Europa has. I mean, it's fascinating to think that there's life currently, or at least recently, on Mars. You know, and it's fascinating to think what the evolutionary process on those planets has resulted in.
Yeah.
And when we show up, I talked to somebody, I forget who. Oh, I think a biologist, the colleague faculty at MIT. He mentioned that because my worry would be if we encounter life on another planet, it would be destructive to us humans, like, or we to them, one or the other. Like, because it's entire. I mean, they can, like, with this virus we're experiencing now. My natural thought, I don't know what I'm talking about with biology, but my natural thought would be like, when you touch that life, it might basically be a parasite, take advantage of you somehow.
Sure.
But he said that likely it would be, there's a certain kind of distance that happens if it's far enough away in terms of the kind of energy it uses the kind of environment it's adapted to, that it basically won't even notice humans. Like it won't know how to take advantage of the resources we provide. So like that's a hopeful message that we basically could study it safely.
But isn't that just like purely speculative? Because if it's in the Goldilocks zone and you have something that is also carbon-based biological life that is a similar temperature range that it exists in, it easily could eat us.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, from inside. Or
like Pandorum in Avatar, that planet. That I always felt like that movie was so interesting because it's close, right? It's close. Whatever it is like not Earth, but it's close. And the things that live there they're not human, but they're close. Like you could kind of see that. It's good enough. It's close enough, like the animals and all the weird creatures in the jungle in the Avatar movie.
But the thing is, most likely life would be not close on other planets.
Most likely.
It'll be. That's the. I told you about David Fraber, who I've talked to recently. By the way, thank you for. I renamed my podcast to just my name, Lex Fridman. When I heard you tell that to Joey Diaz. Yeah. Sadly, people should go listen to Joey's last. He recorded his last Church of What's Happening Now episode. Yeah. So you suggested to him that he should do some new thing totally and just name it after himself. And I was like, why the fuck am I have some silly name like artificial intelligence? Just name it like the Joe Rogan Experience. Just I named it Lex Fridman Podcast. So anyway, I talked to David for 4 hours. Why did I bring that up? Because
David Fraber, you were talking. Let's explain who David Fraber was.
Yeah,
he's a fighter jet pilot for the Navy, and he discovered a UFO off the coast of San Diego that, when they tracked it, went from 60,000 feet to 1 feet in a second or less. They don't know how fast it went because it's the blip of a radar. But the thing traveled in an insane way that defies all of our understanding of propulsion, all of our understanding of physics. And this thing also actively was blocking their tracking systems, which is an act of war. If the Soviet Union or China was doing that, that's technically an act of war. So this thing was doing something that showed that it was intelligently aware of the fact that they are using tracking devices to try to lock in on it. And it behaved and moved in a way that defies all of our understandings of propulsion systems. It didn't give off any heat signature. And the people from the Navy that he was communicating with saying, yeah, we see these every now and again. We don't know what the fuck they are.
So the thing I was going to say, there's a lot of interesting things to say about this, but I just remembered that it felt like from that entire experience that because it didn't have a Chinese or a Russian flag on it, whatever he saw, is we tend to just the entire system doesn't want to acknowledge it. Like you don't know what to do with it. So they actually, most of like when you return back to the ship, and there's a bunch of pilots that that saw it. There's a lot of people that witnessed it, and then there's also the video. The majority of the people didn't know what to do with it. They just went on with their day like nothing happened. They kind of made fun of each other or whatever for yeah, sure, bro, you saw aliens, but like they didn't know how to comprehend it. That's what I meant. Like if we encounter life from elsewhere in the universe, we think we would be as a population excited, but it feels like just like with Bigfoot, we're excited by the mystery when they're just out of reach, but when they're like among us. There's so many mysteries and incredible things among us that we just kind of take them for granted.
Yeah.
And we don't even, or ignore them, actually, even worse. We ignore them.
We get used to things.
And that was the weird thing. The biggest mystery to me about what David Fraber saw, and then also with the other videos in 2014, something like that, the Go Fast, is like it wasn't a bigger deal than I thought it would be.
Well, the big deal was when the Pentagon came out and said that they have recovered some vehicles that are not of this world. Now, they didn't expand on that. There hasn't been more conversation about that. But this is a purely speculation. My speculation is they are slowly spoon feeding us information to allow people to be more comfortable with the inevitable arrival of something. And if they believe that something's coming, they don't want it to happen all at once. You see what happens just with the pandemic. You see what happens with George Floyd. You see what happens with anytime there's a big shock to our system and there's chaos in the streets, it's unmanageable. And if the UFOs came in the middle of something like that, like Jesus Christ, like who the fuck knows what would go down? If I was someone who's in a position of power, I would say, listen, this information's going to get out. It's inevitable. So why don't we let people know now, just give them just in words, say, we have recovered crafts that are not of this world. Say something crazy like that. Print it in the New York Times, get it out there, and then slowly drip out more information. When they see these videos, they'll get more and more accustomed to it. And then eventually to be like masks. Like you walk down the street, everybody has a mask on. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, but okay, so let me...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally... And this is such a fascinating question. If the government is in possession of an alien spacecraft, what is the right way to release that information?
The real problem is if it's more potent than any weapon that any civilization has currently on this planet. So if the United States is in control of this vehicle that is more potent and can do things that, like, if you really do have something that can go from 60,000 feet to 1 foot in under a second, that defies all of our understandings of speed, right? I mean, that's so fast. If you could do that...
Well, there's arguments against, because it could be human-created technology, too, that's just 15, 20, 30 years out. Like the stealth bomber was developed secretly. So what defies... It's our perception of its movement capabilities is what defies. But there could be some tricks on perception that... I mean, that's the whole point with a stealth bomber, is it's difficult to detect.
Sure.
And so there could be same kind of tricks on perception, that you could just be playing different kinds of amazing, secret, human-created technology that is able to deceive the human eye.
That's a good point. I mean, but the thing about it is they tracked it. It wasn't just that it was the human eye that saw this and it's deceptive, but also like the stealth bomber. You know, the way it's designed, it blocks radar, or radar doesn't catch onto it. I think it is possible that some human-created technology that's so far advanced from anything that we're currently that we currently understand, like in terms of like mainstream propulsion experts and fighter pilots like David Fraber and military people, it is possible that some civilization, one of the big civilizations on this planet, whether it's China or Russia, has come up with something that's above and beyond what everybody knows. But it's not likely. It's not likely that they've made that much of a leap.
In your sense, on the other side, if it's alien technology, see, I'm more optimistic. To me, as a scientist and engineer, and actually David Fraber says this too, in this time of pandemic, in this time of like just hard negative news everywhere, there would be nothing more inspiring than the government in an inspiring, like Neil deGrasse Tyson way, coming out and saying we have not releasing the videos like they did, which is, I don't know if you know, but they just put videos on the website like there's nothing. It's just videos. It's just like with like some boring documents that describe like nothing. They're not inspiring. We're not talking about like Neil deGrasse Tyson or like Carl Sagan Cosmos style, like a beautiful, inspiring. What is more inspiring than an alien spacecraft? Look, there's a fascinating mystery here. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more inspiring to us humans than that there's life out there, intelligent life out there.
But how would you handle it? Like, let's imagine you are the leader of the United States, and you find out, or the head of the Navy military intelligence program, whoever you are, you're a person that's in a position where you realize that this thing is from another world, and you have this responsibility to try to somehow or another publicize this.
Yeah,
like
I would approach it 100% from the perspective of science. Here's a mystery. So forget weapon. Like you mentioned, there's this inclination to think like, how can I figure out a way to use this as a weapon to destroy Russia or China, as opposed to seeing it like going to Mars, colonizing Mars, or going to the moon originally. There is some competitive element, but mostly it's a human pursuit of understanding and human pursuit of overcoming our limited knowledge to sort of unlock mysteries of this universe. From a physics perspective, from an engineering perspective, I would release all the information I have and release it in a way that gets the Neil deGrasse Tyson folks in the loop. So it's almost like an inspiring effort for us as a humanity to understand what the hell this thing is versus let's keep it secret and see if we can use it as a weapon.
Well, I appreciate that you think that way because you're a scientist and you're thinking about it in a very positive way to try to expand our education and our understanding of this thing, and maybe we could, use it for good. But you got to realize that anything that surpasses any and all technologies that we currently enjoy in terms of fighter pilots and jets and military superiority, if there's something that just is above and beyond all, if everybody has a Model T and you have a Ferrari, or better yet, you have a Tesla, you have a Model S, and everybody's got a Model T, you're in a race. Like, you have something that is so far above and beyond what everybody else has. It's not really a fair race. It's a joke. You'll dominate. If you have a Model T and the other person has a Tesla and you're racing and the winner gets to decide who has all the food, who gets all the women, who lives in the nice house, like, you're going to win every fucking time, right? Now, if you have a UFO, if you have a spaceship that comes from another planet where they're 1 million years more advanced than us, they've had 1 million years of evolution and technological evolution dealing with elements that are common on their planet that have to be created on a particle collider here, and they only exist for a brief amount of time. If they have something like that that's powered by something that we can't even imagine, and you figure out how to use that here on Earth, you'll have technological superiority over every other civilization,
but
every other country.
In that technological superiority, it's so funny us chimps are like still talking about our village. We want our village to be better than the next village. When there's an alien civilization that's 1 million years more advanced, that can easily destroy us if it wanted to, or actually understands the nature of existence in this universe on levels that are like we chimps talk about, like meditation and finding inner peace. Like, it understands on such a deeper level, like the nature of consciousness, the nature of intelligence, the meaning of life, all that weird stuff that we're so obsessed with. It understands at another level. And here we are thinking about what the Russians are doing versus like understanding that mystery. I think in the face of that mystery of something that's far more intelligent than us, I think we can't. It's a ridiculous notion to think we're anything but one human village. And in terms of weapons, because you said like get all the girls or whatever, I think the weapons thing is the key thing. And we already, at least the major nations, have all the weapons we need to destroy each other. It's like we don't need extra weapons. It feels like your hypothesis would be like, if an alien technology was here and we'd figure it out, we'd be able to have something that destroys other chimp villages an order of magnitude more efficiently than nuclear weapons, thereby having an asymmetrical, sort of from a game theory perspective, power over other nations. And we can tell China what to do. We can tell Russia what to do. That's the perspective from which they're thinking. I'm not even saying that they're thinking that way.
I'm thinking a human would think that if they had control of this vehicle. I'm not saying that the aliens would think this way. I'm thinking also that we are constantly innovating. When you talk to people that are designing jets and planes and fighter pilots, and they're talking about new systems that they've created and new weapons, they don't just sit back and say we have enough weapons to destroy Russia and China and the rest of the world combined, so we're just going to stop. This is not how human beings innovate. Human beings are in this constant state of wanting the newest, greatest innovations. We want to improve upon every single existing invention until we hit some sort of singularity point or whatever the fuck we're striving for as a culture. And that would be that propulsion system. If you do really have something that can go from 60,000 feet to 1 foot in less than a second, you're dealing with something that we don't understand. We can't do that right now. And if you could figure out how to do that and propel people that quickly, it would be a game changer. Now, how much of a game changer? What does that mean? Well, we're in this weird place where we kind of agree to not use our best weapons, right? Like when there's a face-off between the United States jets and a Russian jet, and they come close to each other, like over China or something like that. It's weird because we're not shooting at each other, but we're real close. And even the missiles that we have, they're not nuclear. Like but we're involved in a skirmish with another country. But we don't use all our weapons. Like if we approached war the way people approached war in, the Middle Ages, we would just nuke the fuck out of everybody that talks shit, right? Yeah. Anybody, what did China just say? What did they just say? Fucking launch those missiles. Fuck those people.
Instead of Twitter, It'd be nukes. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're already in this place where we don't use our best stuff. So if we had something that made us fly better and fly faster, the real question is, how much would that change the world? I don't know how much it would. If we got in control of some UFO and we're able to get to China quicker, how much of a difference would that make in terms of like the way they responded to our military? We're in this position now where there's multiple countries that have the ability to destroy other countries. There's Iran has some sort of a nuclear program. Pakistan has a nuclear program. India has a nuclear program. Of course, the United States, Russia, China. There's many countries that have the ability to fucking wipe out huge numbers of the population like that. Just launch. Just one crazy, psychotic leader who just decides to listen, we're going to fucking make our mark here. Everybody together on 1, 2, 3, go. Boom.
That's
terrifying.
Such a difficult, you talk to Snowden, it's such a difficult ethical question. Like if I actually had that information, I tend to lean a little bit on the side of it's the duty of every American to leak that information, to take it and make it public. But I understand that it takes a huge risk of destroying the world because evil people can get their hands on that information. That's the Bob Lazar question, right?
Well, wasn't that Oppenheimer's dilemma? I mean, when Oppenheimer, who's a very peaceful man, created the most destructive, or helped create the most destructive invention the world's ever known. It's a conundrum, right? But doing so, did he prevent a lot of other death because Germany would have gotten it or Japan would have gotten it and they would have used it on Europe. They would have used it on the United States. Is that possible? That's the argument, right? That there's a race going on, that people understand that splitting the atom is possible, that nuclear weapons are feasible, and whoever gets them first is going to have a massive advantage. We got them first, and therefore, we became the preeminent superpower. But what if we didn't? What if Oppenheimer was a dummy? What if there was a bunch of knuckleheads working for the United States and the Russians and the Germans and the Japanese were all working together and they came up with something far better? Obviously, the Russians were against the Germans in that war, but I mean, you fit together any superpowers at the time. If they got together with their scientists and they figured out a nuclear bomb first and just dropped it on San Francisco, well, how much would the world be different now?
Yeah, I mean, and Russia. I mean, Stalin is a complicated figure,
yes.
So he was on the side of the United States at the time.
But evil as fuck.
But evil,
Yeah.
And if he had nuclear weapons, it's a whole nother discussion.
Yes.
And it's actually quite surprising to me that we got out of the 20th century alive.
Yeah.
So from a perspective of Oppenheimer, I think he probably wondered if we're going to destroy ourselves within the next decade, no matter what happens. When you have weapons that can destroy all of civilization, especially now with hydrogen bombs,
Mm-hmm.
it's complicated to talk about anything like alien technology.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably. I mean, if I was an alien and I was paying attention to Earth, that's probably why I would visit. Yeah. I'd be like, these chimps are in this weird stage of evolution where they're still chimps. they're still behaving like territorial apes. But now they have nuclear technology. They have this very crude version of literally the power of the sun.
Well, that's what. Okay, so here's another hypothesis. They saw these destructive weapons, and so they actually in Roswell, plant or whatever it is, planted a piece of technology that we should figure out. There'll be an infinitely powerful generator of love versus destruction. So they're like, okay, these chimps are not going down the wrong path. Let us plant some stuff where they figure out like how to be enlightened.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, mushrooms. That's what they were.
That's what they did.
I mean,
they probably tried that.
Because they kind of, it's where, from their perspective, the chimps are like a nice video game, like they're like a chia pet where you watch them like grow, and they probably, I mean, that's what we would do if we encounter maybe like an ant colony, and we saw that the ant colony is destroying itself. Us from a scientific perspective, we'd want them to not become extinct. So probably interfere in some way to try to prevent the ant colony from destroying itself.
Probably.
So that, as a curiosity, as a cosmic it feels like Earth is a cosmic curiosity. From a perspective of an intelligent alien species, like that's really interesting what's going on there. Let's see what's happening.
A friend of mine told me the story that he saw two mounds of fire ants.
Yeah.
And that he did this experiment where he took a bucket and he scooped up ants from one fire ant colony and scooped up ants from the other and then dumped them on the opposite colonies and watched them fight to the death. And I was like, fuck, really? He goes, yeah, they instantaneously knew that those ants were from the wrong colony and they just went to war.
And there's a few good books on ants. They have like a collective intelligence.
Yeah.
Because we tend to think of the individual ants, but somehow as an organism together in the thousands of ants, millions of ants, there's somehow a collective intelligence that emerges. Like there's this whole field of computer science called ant colony optimization. Like if we just simulate nature-inspired optimization algorithms, they somehow figure out how to do stuff in an emergent way. Don't really understand it. We don't have mathematics to deal with like when you have a bunch of distributed organisms doing dumb stuff. Just looking at their neighbors, when you look at the system as a whole, intelligent stuff emerges. That's that. There's do you know who Stephen Wolfram is? No, by any chance? Well, you know who Eric Weinstein is.
Yeah.
So Eric Weinstein is, out of the million intelligent thing he does, he's also a mathematical physicist. So he has like that theory of everything that you've talked to him about, or he blew your mind with geometric unity.
Yeah.
There's another guy, really brilliant guy, Stephen Wolfram. He's a physicist. He created Wolfram Alpha that like everybody uses in high school for to do their homework in calculus.
Yeah, it is.
It's you can ask it a bunch of questions like how much does Joe Rogan weigh or something like that. Like it has these I don't know if it knows about Joe Rogan, but it'd be interesting. Let's see. Anyway, it has like this huge knowledge base. Yeah, maybe it doesn't know individual people.
What does it say?
Pretty close. No, I mean.
What does it say?
Just has like Google information.
Oh, it's just.
But it's able to integrate it really well. So like it can do math on this information. That's a really important thing. So it can do like it can calculate the average population of Austin because it has the information of the number of people, the number, the area, all that, whatever. It's a really useful tool. But he also came out with this Wolfram Physics project recently, where he describes. It's another theory of everything. Do you know what a theory of everything is? It's a unification of all the different laws of physics, so that with one theory you can describe everything that's happening around us. And the reason I bring that up because we're talking about ants. Stephen Wolfram's idea. He has this he has this model of the universe. That's this what's called a hypergraph. It's this really simple system that grows with a single rule. Like it expands. It starts from just a couple of points that are connected with a line, and then it grows with a single simple rule. Just like ants interact really simply, this system grows, and his theory is that it can grow and to create our entire universe. Like from it, it doesn't have a concept of space or time like we perceive it, the three-dimensional space and the fourth dimension of time, but all of that emerges within the system. We chimps are 1 in 10 to the 120 part of that incredible infrastructure that grows. And he like mathematically describes the way this thing grows. We don't currently have good mathematics for modeling the way such systems grow. There's something called Cellular Automata, where it's really called Game of Life. Unfortunately, John Conway, that created the Game of Life, died recently from COVID. It describes this very simple system where from simple rules you can have incredible complexity. And it's a really cool idea that our universe started from basically one ant, and then or actually 2 ants, and then their interaction creates a system that's so incredibly complex, even though the underlying rules are simple. We don't understand why the hell that happens. We humans, from the scientific perspective, we know how to describe a single system, the way an object moves. We don't have a math or even a science of describing how trillions of objects move when they interact simply with each other. We don't know how to do that, but that's what seems to happen. When you look at, we know how to, psychology can describe the behavior of a single human. What we don't have a science of is to describe what happens when 1 billion humans interact. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but it's called a complexity, a study of complexity.
What is this, Jamie?
This is what hypergraph.
Yeah.
He started explanations of all this sort of stuff.
So if you look at any of those, if you zoom in on any of those graphs, when the previous page, the previous one was really good. So if you zoom in on any of those, below you see all these beautiful little graphy things. Below it there is 2 boxes, and that describes a rule of if you see a pattern on the left, expand it to the pattern on the right, and the entirety. So his hypothesis is one of these rules created the universe, where this little rule of if you see a pattern on the left, create a pattern on the right, it creates these incredibly rich graphs from which emerge he's modeling all of quantum mechanics, of general relativity. So theory of everything needs to unify the physics of the big, which is general relativity, special relativity, and then the physics of the really small, which is quantum mechanics. And he, within those graphs, is able to find the emergence of these theories. First, the emergence of space and time, then everything you need to describe for quantum field theory, all that kind of stuff. It's trippy.
Go back to those images.
Mm-hmm. That was a bunch of really cool ones.
Is that him right there?
Nope.
Who's that guy?
It's probably just a teacher.
Just a guy. Those images that you showed in that graph, you know what that reminds me of? Do you remember the movie Arrival?
Yeah, he was Wolfram. Oh, okay. He was the designer of the language.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he was tasked, such a cool task as a physicist.
Oh my God.
It's can you design a method by which the aliens might be communicating with us?
God, that looks like it, or similar too.
But there was a math behind it. So the language he developed, there was a mathematical richness to the language. Him and his son.
When you get this far down the intellectual rabbit hole, when you go, how many people actually understand this to the point where they could read it, describe it accurately?
This is interesting. That's the problem with the theory of everything, is very few physicists really understand the details involved. We're talking.
You have to be.
It's the same as the order of magnitude of professional comedians, I would say. It's thousands, maybe less than 1,000
on the whole planet.
On the whole planet. But the cool thing about the Wolfram thing is, set physics aside, it's just the part that a lot of people can understand, and I highly recommend curious undergrads, and really you don't need to know how to program. They understand how those beautiful things and the language in the movie Arrival can grow from simple rules. You can play with it. Like, it's one of the most beautiful, in terms of maybe take some mushrooms and like, if you want to see a beautiful concept, is have a system that's really simple, like a few dots, like a tic-tac-toe board, and have rules that apply to that board that are really simple. One simple rule, and like the beautiful patterns that emerge.
Like, give me an example of a rule like that.
So the rule for the game of life is, for like something like a tic-tac-toe board, is a cell that's white is dead. A cell that's black is alive, let's say. And when 3 of the cell's neighbors are also alive, then you live on. Otherwise, you die, meaning you flip. You know.
Okay.
So when you have 3 neighbors, I might be getting the exact rule wrong for the game of life, but when you only, each cell only looks at its neighbors, and when a certain number of neighbors is alive, I think it's 3, then you continue being black, you continue being alive. Otherwise, you die. It's a live, die, and you're just a single cell sitting there, and you live and die based on your neighbors. Okay, that's dumb. I mean, it's very simple. You think, what can be created from that, and you can create everything in the known universe from that. So like, people have created computers from that, from a Turing machine. Like, the patterns that emerge, you can create all these kinds of fractals. You think like it would create some kind of repeatable regular pattern or something like that. It would be something dumb, but it can create these one really important thing is the cell just knows about itself. It doesn't move, it just knows about itself. But when you zoom out and you look at the result from the system, it looks like there's objects running around. Like, the individual cells aren't running around, but it looks like the objects are running around. You can have messengers, you can have what are called spaceships, which are these mechanisms that use the cells and move around. Like, if you have any GIFs or videos of it, like, there's stuff that moves, and it seems like it's intelligent objects that communicate with each other, and all of that emerges. And you can say, like, if you just think about it a little bit, like, you have to remind yourself that, see, like this animation right there, it looks like there's a moving object. Like, it looks, so I think these are called glider guns or something like that, where they shoot off objects of different kinds. And like, you think, but the individual cell knows nothing about anything except itself and its nearest neighbors. And as a result, you can nevertheless have arbitrary complexity, objects of arbitrary size that move around, that live and die, like that, like I said, do any kind of computation in the world. It makes you realize that it's possible that this universe is just some simple, dumb rules on a scale of 10 to the 120. Like an ant colony that just scaled like an insanely to an arbitrary degree. And then we're like this clueless apes that are just the result of that. We're not able to perceive at all the much, much smaller level, the simplicity that's happening to us. All of this seems like it seems complicated to us. Like, this table seems like it's wood. We don't perceive the atoms, we don't perceive the quantum mechanics, we don't perceive whether it's string theory or something like Wolfram is saying, like these objects that are interacting at a microscope far smaller than the microscopic level. But it might be that there are really simple rules that just create all of this. It seems complicated to us, but it's something that's, I think, is nice to appreciate for people from all walks of life, how much complexity be created from simplicity, from simple rules. How much richness, beauty just could be created from simple rules.
Isn't it also really interesting that everything tends to move towards greater and greater complexity?
Well, so this is, I think, really important, and it's surprising. In general, the second law of thermodynamics says that everything becomes more chaotic. So it's not complex, it becomes more boring. The heat death in the universe, that everything moves apart, everything becomes random. Eventually. But the thing is that there's pockets of complexity, and that these pockets keep getting created of some interesting stuff. Us little like chimps. Like interesting stuff keeps getting created. It's not obvious that should be the case.
But just life in general. If you go from single-celled organisms, you go from bacteria to what we know now as human beings. Just think of all the different steps that had to take place. And it moves towards greater and greater complexity, greater and greater ability to manipulate their environment, greater and greater ability to understand tools and 3D space and how to manipulate things. One of the things that I've always been fascinated about with the concept of aliens is what if the general direction that we're leaning in as a society, like if you think about human beings today, we're so much more civilized than human beings were 5,000 years ago. We're a different thing. We're less murderous. We're less inclined to be physical. We have much more access to inventions, much more access to technology. Technology was non-existent back then. We have electricity. We have computers. We have all these different things. But it's moving in this direction more rapidly now than ever before in terms of the innovation of objects and ideas. If you go back to a computer, like I remember I got a flat screen computer for the first time. I don't remember when it was, but I remember I looked at one in 1995, I think it was, and it was like $20,000 in 95. And it was basically the size of that panel. And it was like a flat, I forget what the technology was at the time. It wasn't LCD. Plasma. That's what it was. It was a plasma television, and it looked like dog shit, but it was thin, fairly thin. But today it would look like a brick, like a crude mud brick that someone made in the jungle. It looked like terrible. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I'm not spending that much money on that fucking thing. That's crazy. So I got a regular TV. But now you can get a TV like that for nothing. You get a TV that size that's far better. Like an LCD screen, beautiful 4K, for like $100 or something like that. It's amazing how much the technology has changed, and how much better it's gotten.
20 years.
Yeah, that's a blink of an eye in terms of the history of the world, right? And then you stop and think about iPhone 1. iPhone 1 was 10 years ago, 13 now, 2007. And it looks terrible. You ever pick one up? I still have one. I found one when I was moving out here. I found an old phone of mine. I'm like, look at this hunk of shit. Yeah. It's crazy. It's small. It's clunky. The screen looks terrible. The camera's dog shit. It's just everything about it. It's slow, awkward. Now you go to what I have now. I have iPhone 11, and it's 11 years or 13 years later. It's infinitely better. It's so much better. The camera, the zoom capability. And then there's this giant technological race for Samsung's coming out with the new Note 20 Ultra with fucking 100x zoom, or all these different things that are happening. We're in this weird technology race. If you looked at us from afar and you said, well, what does this organism do? What does this human organism do? Well, it does a lot of things. It creates culture. It has, different rules and religions and this. Okay. But what does it do? What's the end result? Bees make honey. What do people do? They make technology. And one of the things that we do in terms of like keeping up with the Joneses, materialism, all these different weird traits that human beings have, what they lend themselves to is technological innovation. Because if you're a materialist, you want the newest, latest, greatest thing. Like, what year is that car? 2018? Oh, you haven't seen the 2021. So much better. The 2018 car is fucking fine, man. It'll get you around. But if you want to impress people, you got to have the 2021. Well, one of the things that's weird about people is how materialistic we are. So materialistic. There's so many Instagram pages that are just filled with people with nice houses and let me look at my shit, look at all my watches, look at all my this, look at all my that. I mean, this is the thing that drives it drives consumers. It drives commerce, and commerce drives innovation. Yeah. Innovation drives technology. Technology is what we create. We just do it in a weird way. We do it through sex. We do it through social status. We do it through the need for respect, for envy, all these different things. But all of that really does is drive technology, because that's ultimately the end of the line. And
if you look at the big history, one of the quotes that Elon tweeted is from Andrej Karpathy, the head of Tesla Autopilot. Shout out to Andre, one of the great machine learning engineers of our time. But his quote was, if you bombard Earth with photons long enough, eventually it will emit a Tesla. So like you basically, if you look from the very origins, it's like the sun just needed to provide some energy to this thing, like heat it up a little bit, and eventually they'll start creating Teslas and then emit them into space. It'll start to have like rockets. I mean, it's
it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it has happened. So,
but it's accelerating.
Yes.
This is why. I mean, again, the Elon sort of exponential growth idea. I mean, it just seems to be getting faster and faster and faster, which is us humans aren't able to reason that way. Like most of the technology we see around us is about 100 years worth, 150, electricity, radio, TV, most of the medical innovations from antibiotics to just everything to surgery, to all the kinds, to most of the innovations in biology and chemistry, modern physics, even so obviously computers, internet, all of that. So it's 100 years, 150 years maybe, and it's accelerating, and so our ability to think like what is possible in the next 10, 20 years is flawed. I mean, that's one, like we talked about Neuralink. That's why there's a lot of people kind of, unable to reason like how quickly people in the scientific community are aware of how little or how limited our understanding of the human brain is on the neurobiological level, just neuroscience, just the basic functional, at the functional level, like how the brain functions. And so they think like, well, many of the possibilities that are especially exciting with the technology, like brain-computer interfaces, like with Neuralink, must be 120, 100, 200, 300 years away. But the way things are accelerating, it's very possible that it's 50 years away, 30 years away. Like the ability to digitize memories, to be able to replay memories, to digitize, like Ray Kurzweil dreams about, digitize the minds of humans. So immortality. Like I mentioned, Sarah Seeger, people should check out her new book. It's a memoir. But she searches for exoplanets. She was one of the key people in discovering new exoplanets. And Proxima Centauri is the closest that we think of Earth-like planet, or at least habitable planet out there. And that seems to be too far away unless you're able to digitize humans. So as she said, the easiest way to travel to that planet to see if there's extraterrestrial life out there is to digitize a human and send them on a ship, because you can then travel much, much faster than we could otherwise. And you can have multi-generational, obviously, travel, because a digital form of a human mind, of consciousness, intelligence, all that kind of stuff, it could travel for millennia, right? And so that's an exciting possibility. And most people would say that we don't really understand much about the mind, and in order to understand enough about the mind to be able to digitally convert it, to digitally store it, and be able to ship it to Proxima Centauri would be centuries. One of the exciting things about Neuralink to me in the long term is that they're really pushing, instead of making it centuries, making it decades. Just like the bringing together the best engineers and scientists in the world and saying this is ripe with innovation. There's a possibility here to do something truly special, not only to understand not only to help people with neurological disorders, which is a huge, obviously, goal, a mission, a dream to alleviate suffering, right? That's as good of a mission for a group of scientists as any, but also that we can understand the mind. We can expand different capacities of the mind, like expand intelligence, expand consciousness, expand all the different kinds of capabilities of the mind, and be able to digitally store that mind. So understand it to a degree to where we can copy it, to we can store it, to we can transmit it out to distant stars, and to meet our alien friends in digital form. That's a mind-blowing mission for us chimps.
Yeah, that's what I wonder when I think about alien life and that Tic Tac UFO that David Fraber saw.
Yeah.
Like the idea that would be biological, that there would be some sort of biological life inside of it, seems a little retro.
Right. So everything about that seems retro, about our interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Like one thing is, David's general inclination is, I think he said on your podcast with him, is like he wants to fly that thing. His first thought was like, I want to fly that thing.
That's like finding an animal on another planet. I want to fuck it.
Yeah.
Is that a giraffe? I want to fuck that space giraffe.
Like my question to him was like, why did you think that's something you could fly?
Yeah.
Like that to me seems preposterous, that it could be a thing that could be flied to. It's preposterous to me that there's an actual alien on board. It could be just a reconnaissance. Well,
it could be what life becomes. One of the things that I've been thinking about when it comes to Neuralink and all sorts of medical innovations in terms of artificial limbs and different prosthetics that people are able to concoct today, how close are we to those being better than the biological alternatives, right? Like how close are we to that? Like if you lose your arm, they actually give you a $6 million man arm that's better. You remember that movie, that TV show?
Yeah.
Steve Austin, the man barely alive. Remember that? Do you? You're not old enough.
And I'm
when I was
born
a kid,
in the Soviet Union, so we didn't have any of those propaganda.
There was
films.
a movie. It was a TV show. It was an awesome TV show for me when I was a kid, about a guy who was, I think he was a fighter pilot, and he was in a crash, and they rebuilt him with artificial parts. But the artificial parts, he had like legs. He could run 60 miles an hour. He had a hand. He could fucking just crush you with his hand.
Yeah.
It was wild stuff, man. It was fun. But it was just science fiction television. But if they do get to a point where they have legs that work better than your legs and they feel like your legs. Like I have friends that have fake hips. I have friends that have resurfaced hips and resurfaced knees where they've terrible arthritis or cartilage damage, and they've just replaced the part, and now they work. Now it works great. They can do things. Like my friend with his bad hip, he runs with this fake hip. John Wayne Parr, the Muay Thai kickboxer, he's throwing kicks now with his fake hip. He just got his leg was fixed 2 months ago, I think, and his on his Instagram has got him throwing high kicks with this resurfaced left leg. It's crazy. When is it going to come to a point in time where they can replace your eyes with better versions of what you have now? And they work better. Like it's not, I know you're scared, but it's no big deal. It's like glasses, but it's way better. Mm-hmm. We're going to put these things in where your eyes used to be. They're magnetic. Women love them. If you don't have them, you're going to look like a loser. What, you got biological eyes? What if these things that we're seeing are the ultimate symbiotic interaction of biology, or the initial biology, and technology? What if Neuralink is just one step into us essentially giving up our biological heritage and becoming a part of the future? This idea of artificial life is a weird word, right? Because it's not artificial. It's right there. It's real. It's maybe it's made with things that are different than cells, but it's still life. It's a thing. Like if you can create, like the Turing test, right? Like you create something that seems so real and interacts with you and can trick you, and it can trick someone who thinks, like the movie Ex Machina. You're I fell in love with that robot lady, and you would too. She was hot, and she seemed like really nice. Like why am I so hung up on biology? What's the big deal? If that becomes what people are, if you can download your consciousness into something that looks like a human being, and your consciousness rides around in this creation, this technological creation, maybe that's what aliens are. And maybe that's what we need to do to get past these territorial ape instincts that we have to look at a spaceship and go, I want to fly that. Let's look at an animal. I want to fuck it. To the idea of wanting to go over to a place and dominate it.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the key things we might be able to get past is the I in that sentence. The concept of individuality. The concept that I'm a there's an identity. Like I am this meat bucket that's like that somehow is special and unique and so on. That
the
like,
ego,
the ego, the consciousness. Like it feels like something to be me as opposed to like maybe I'm just like a little fingertip of a much larger organism. Like and being able to see it, like it's very possible that what intelligent life forms look like is something much less individualistic. Like if we look at ant colonies and if we think of the individual ants, it's a very different way to think about life on Earth than the collection of the ants together. Or if we look at the collection of the humans together as an intelligent organism, combined with the technology that we're creating, all of that becomes almost a single organism that's becoming more and more intelligent. That the idea that there is a hard line between biology and digital technology that we're developing, it really, from an outsider's perspective, that line doesn't exist. We're all an interesting, complicated mush that doesn't have a concept of individuals, doesn't have a concept of ego or individual consciousnesses. It's all one thing, and we're just adding more to it. And with Neuralink, it's not, people kind of think that there's going to be some kind of leap into a totally transformative, a thing that totally changes the very nature of our civilization. I think it'll just all be gradual, just like from iPhone 1 and 2 and 3. All this technology will slowly expand our capabilities. It won't, just like the human eye developed through evolution, the eye developed through evolution. It was gradual. It wasn't like it just appeared. It's just something that slowly allowed you to sense the environment better and better and better and better. And eventually something as nice and crisp and sexy as the human eye emerged. And, the other concern people have is with like surgery and so on. That's also really, it's a difficult thing. Like I got Lasik surgery, for example. You mentioned eyes. That was a scary thing to get.
I would imagine. When did you get it?
5 years ago, maybe.
How'd it go?
It was is like a lot of people talk about it. Is when I woke up next morning, I could see. I could see for the first time. It was beautiful, and it was like I was kind of angry that I didn't do it earlier. That's what a lot of people describe as their experience. Now, what happened a week later is I forgot what it's like to not be that. I took it for granted basically a day later, but like a week later, it was like I wasn't. I already forgot the entire magic of the experience, and that's what I think will just keep happening. Is there's this gradual little step, this little leap into a future that everyone will go and say, "Wow, it's kind of cool," and then they'll forget it was cool, and then they'll go back on Twitter to complain about some divisiveness that's happening in politics today. So it'll just constantly, will all of a sudden. Have a capability to have some extra level of telepathic communication, for example, in 40 years. And then people would just be like, just like we got used to swipe writing on the phone, they'll, at first it'll be like, first people would be like, I don't know, I don't want, I'm not sure I want the government to know what I'm thinking. Next, they'll just like try it out, be like, oh, it's kind of cool, much easier to type on Twitter. And then next, they'll just be like, that's it, we're all just communicating telepathically, and all happened.
There's still be so many pros to it, to not ever being able to lie. I mean, if we're forced out, one of the biggest problems with people's being deceptive, like we have this ability to communicate. We use sounds that relay intent, and then you listen. You go into your own dictionary and your own concept of what these words mean, and then you convey what you think I'm saying. You interpret what you think I'm saying. But I could be a bullshit artist, right? Like a lot of people are. Like when you talk to someone who's a psychic and they say you have a relationship with there's a woman.
Yes.
There's a woman.
Keep talking.
You're not close, but you should be. There's
Yes, we should be.
Who's this person in your life?
It's my mother.
Yeah, and you go, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what that is. If you could really look into their head and go, hey, fuckface, you don't see anything. You're lying to me. You're pulling on my heartstrings. You know I'm lonely. You're trying to manipulate me so that you can make money. Yeah. Or you're talking to my dead mom. You know, like, your mother wants you to be happy. She wants you to donate your money to charity. Like, this person's not really talking to your mom. They're liars. And there's a lot of those people out there. All that would go away. All the bank fraud and manipulation, politics, all that will go away. A politician won't be able to lie because you'll be able to look right into their fucking head. You'll be able to like, oh, they don't care at all about America. Or, hey, he's a really good person that really does think that we can get along. We really can work together. We have enough resources. We should behave as a community, as a giant 300 million people community, and that's possible. It can be done. And like, look at this. That guy's a murderer. We didn't even know. This guy's walking around. He murdered 3 people. You'll be able to see. You'll be able to see into people's minds. You'll be able to know. This is all this stuff is incredibly tempting. When you think of something like Neuralink or you know, once there's something like that, there'll be multiple different versions of it after a while. When those innovations start to roll out, what we'll give up, it'll be just like all the other aspects of technology. We will give some things up, and there'll be a bunch of people that do reminisce for the retro days. Like, oh, the good old days when you wanted to send a letter, you had to write it down on paper, and a dude in a horse, like a fucking, like, who's that dude's? Kevin Costner movie, The Postman. Remember that? A terrible fucking movie about post-apocalyptic postman who was like the most important guy because he can get your letters. But that kind of shit, like, we give up something to get this new thing, and then we decide this new thing. Like, no, very few people are giving up their cell phones and going to flip phones. Very few people are going no phone at all. Very few. Yeah. Right? What's the matter, Jamie?
Just read the poster real quick. I put it up on the screen.
Oh. The year?
2013.
2013. One man walked off the horizon, and hope came with him.
I love Kevin Costner.
Whoa.
You know what the greatest movie of all time is? Waterworld.
No, it's not. It's a terrible movie. But you know what's good? The Waterworld show at Universal in Hollywood. But I don't think they can do it anymore. I think California's so goddamn draconian in their restrictions. I think they've got it locked down. But that's it. That Waterworld movie is Citizen Kane compared to The Postman. Postman is a steaming pile of shit. It's so bad. It is a really bad movie.
But somehow, actually, Kevin Costner can make really bad movies and make them somehow watchable.
Oh, he makes really great movies too. Dances with Wolves is fucking incredible, and that's all him. You know, he's made some awesome stuff, no doubt about it.
I like. I mean, you meant the pros and cons. I really like the replay of memory. I don't know if that connects with you, but I remember
idea of that.
The idea of that, like I remember. It sounds weird, but. So like this is what I got a chance to talk to Elon afterwards, and he had this funny comment. I mean, he thinks in weird ways, right? But his comment was that if we one day will be able to replay memories, I wonder if this is a memory that you and I would choose. And it made me think, like, I certainly would, because you know there's momentous. Like, I would probably replay this very podcast in my mind. This experience. I remember, you know, you do this a lot, but for me it was a special experience. I was sitting with you and Eric Weinstein at the back of the Comedy Store. I remember during that moment, I'm awkward and scared and nervous. I remember thinking like I didn't want to take pictures, but I wanted to like store this. Because it felt like a historic moment. Just that lineup, it was like the who's who of comedy, doing just short little bits of comedy that entire night. It just felt like history. Like I stepped into the Coliseum, like, and got to hang out with the gladiators, and not to be sort of. It felt like that had to end at some point. I get Russian. I start to like think about how this is going to end, but it felt like this is going to have to end eventually. Well,
you were right.
I didn't.
It ended with a virus.
The virus, and it's an end of an era. But that was a special moment, and I would want to replay that.
it's hard. I have similar feelings about how special it was, but it was hard for me in the moment to think about it because although I did appreciate it as much as I could in the moment, you can't dwell on it too much because you're in the middle of a creative process. Like stand-up comedy is an ever-changing, constantly evolving process. When I have an act, I get it to a point where I can imagine recording it, and then I record it, and then I start over. But during the whole time of making it, I'm always tweaking it. It's never done. It's constantly being fucked with. I'm constantly putting this first and that second and switching the order and doing this part of the bit in the beginning and then switching it to the end and then adding something and maybe being more sneaky with how I reveal the punchline or how I do this and that. And so there's this process that's constantly going on. You can't go, wow. I mean, I know and I knew during a time like this really is the golden age of comedy. It's a very special time in this very special place. I knew that. But I also knew that I couldn't think of that. You just had to keep moving.
But what about, so that's the comedy side, but what about the camaraderie? I mean, the back of the Comedy Store is the camaraderie of it.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like when is the next time, say we reopen the economy, when is the next time there's going to be all of those comedians showing up regularly to one place?
A lot of us have moved, unfortunately. Joey Diaz moved to New Jersey for now.
What is that about?
Thank you.
He's slowly becoming the Sopranos show.
Listen, once the winter kicks in and he understands that he fucked up, I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna present Texas as a viable opportunity. Hopefully by then I'll have a club here. The number one goal. See, the goal was to get here, set up shop, put together this studio. Okay, we got that going. We're up and running. Now, goal number 2 is a comedy club. Goal number 3 is a ranch. Goal number 3 is we have a podcast ranch. And we do all kinds of wacky shit there. You got to come back to the ranch. We're going to... we're gonna have
is Duncan Trussell gonna live on the ranch?
Oh fuck yeah! Guaranteed Duncan will come.
By the way, greatest. I mean, as just a fan, Duncan is. I heard you try to talk him into moving to Austin.
Yeah, he wants to move to North Carolina though. That's where he's from. You know, he's from Asheville, and I think he has designs on that. But if I could talk him into moving here, one thing we were both talking about doing a television show. Or doing a podcast, rather, doing a show together. I don't know why I said television show. But he and I doing a show together, like a regular show, like maybe once a week. Just me and him sitting down and shooting the shit and talking about life once a week. I think we have a weird connection, he and I. We've known each other for so long. He used to be my roommate. He lived in my house for a little bit. And, you know, I've known him since he was the guy who answered the phones at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
You know, I've known him forever, since the beginning of his comedy career. And, you know, we've always been real close. And we're weird together. We bring out something weird in each other.
Yeah, I mean, the positivity that he brings, he just has this weirdly positive view of the world. Yeah. And yet, like, the crazy theories he has about the way the world is. I mean, he's a special human being. I'm glad that guy exists.
Me too. Yeah, I love him.
And Joey Diaz is the other side of that.
Yeah, he's chaos. Joey Diaz is chaos. If there was, like an element called chaos, and it had like a physical manifestation where you could like see like an avatar of chaos, it's Joey Diaz. He would always bring the party. I always said whenever we would go on the road, Joey Diaz brings the party. He was always the guy that was just like if we were out at dinner, Joey was always stealing the show. He was always the funniest guy in the room. He's always the madman, and he also. Joey Diaz works best when people love him, like when he's around people who love him and when he knows he could just be himself. And so, you know, all of his crazy stories and preposterous exaggerations, over-the-top exaggerations about things, all done for comedy. Yeah, that's him.
I think, when you watch great chess champions play against each other, or like great like Muhammad Ali versus Frazier, was the moment when I saw Joey go against Alex Jones. I thought, because you say crazy, I thought like Alex Jones is what is it, the Fraser, like there's no way you can take that guy down with the art of conversation. But Joey just took him apart.
Well, it was back when Alex was on the radio too. So Joey's talking about storing weed under his balls and sneaking it in on a flight to Texas. And
Alex, funny enough, was censoring himself.
I know he was like, well, this isn't real. Hang on, he's just joking around, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, and there's a lot of those characters out of the Comedy Store. It's a special place.
You miss it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. But it doesn't exist right now, and I'm a realist, And also, the place that existed in Los Angeles is not the same Los Angeles. That place is fucked right now. It's fucked, and the mayor's fucked, and the governor's fucked, and they've done a terrible job of managing the pandemic, and the place is in ruins. It's a mess. LA is a mess.
How does it get unfucked?
It's going to take years.
So here's my worry. So you have a different, you know LA, you know the Comedy Store. My worry, I got, not to brag, it's very weird, but I got recognized on the way to here 4 times. It was weird.
Congratulations.
It's very weird. Listen, you're a celebrity. Fuck you. But I've never been recognized like that.
Well, you've been on this podcast how many times now?
I don't, 5.
5 times.
Yeah.
So, do you know how many millions of people have seen you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have the podcast I do is a little more technical. So like the kind of people that they don't, I can see the difference between the people who recognize me from Rogan and the people who recognize me from the podcast I do. It's a different, like they're usually just like you say, shaved head tattoos versus or like jiu-jitsu, like cauliflower ears,
right.
Like bro, and actually women too. But then for guys, if you could tell, like, okay, this guy's a CEO of some company or like is a programmer, that's more the.
Do you wear that suit and tie everywhere when you travel?
Suit, yeah.
So
travel usually because I hate traveling. I'll go jeans and shirt because
okay, well that's tricky.
That's my pajamas.
Yeah, that's how you sneak by.
Yeah,
because with this suit is your uniform.
They recognize me with the mask too.
That's weird.
That was weird.
That's weird.
Well, it makes you think like, oh, yeah, I recognize you from the eyes and the haircut. Anyway, but the reason I bring that up, that was so weird.
Strange.
I apologize.
No,
they mentioned 2 of the people actually mentioned that they're leaving San Francisco because they're tech people, and they said one of them moved to Austin, and they said that the people are fleeing San Francisco too.
Fleeing.
Yeah,
fleeing.
That's the term, fleeing.
Yeah, and that's the right term because San Francisco is insane. You know, San Francisco has an app where you can find the human shit in the city because it's so numerous. It's so prevalent. You know, so many bums are shitting in the streets that they have apps.
I like how you went to that. I was referring to another aspect of it, which is it's not even San Francisco. It's the entirety of Silicon Valley, which is there's very much a group think.
Yes.
That moved away from a meritocracy of where we want to innovate and change the world with our ideas to a little bit more like... I don't know how to put it, but a kind of a group think that pushes against that. And so people are trying to like if
pushes against that. How so?
Well, I mean, that's what Jordan Peterson talks about. It's the identity politics tends to try to silence the desire within people to judge based on meritocracy, based on skill, based on hard work, based on passion, and so on. It changes the topic of the conversation in a way that moves. Like if you're a kid, guy or girl, who dreams of changing the world, you start a startup. Like the last thing you want to be talking about is, last thing you want to be doing is playing identity politics. What you want is hire the best people for the job, men or women, and you want to change the world. You don't want to be playing discussions that are like that are going on in gender studies, parts of academia, and so there's a kind of groupthink that I think holds you back within places like Silicon Valley, within certain parts of academia. I think these are important conversations to be had, but they need to be had by nuance without being a bully. So most of the people that play identity politics, Twitter, they talk about, all really good things. They carry the flag of justice, of fairness, of equality, of respect and love. But that's like the flag. But what they do is they bully.
Yeah.
There's a toxic nature to it, and they attack. I get attacked actually for not having an equal distribution of women on the podcast where I interview. Now, that's something I work very much on.
Who attacks you for this?
A small percentage of people on Twitter, but they and I ignore. I never respond, and I always send telepathically love. I mean, that's all I can do. There's two things. One, there's probably been pain in their past. They're hurting, and two, it's probably from their perspective enjoyable, that social game, to say, I want the world to be more fair.
Yeah.
And saying that, and then everybody says, congratulates themselves and each other for saying, I want the world to be more fair. What they don't realize is by calling somebody like me a fraud or sexist is absurd. You're putting hate out there as opposed to love. Like, I'm annoyingly tweeting about love all the time. like I even annoy myself sometimes, because I'll have a mood where I'm like, I've tweeted before, like, life is beautiful. I was sitting like 3 a.m, and like with a stupid smile on my face, and just like, this is awesome. Life is awesome. It was probably
life is awesome.
And then you call me a fraud? Like, that's not the right place for the movement. They do that because I'm probably an easy target, because I'm like, look, there's a nice guy. He looks weak. Like, they think I'm weak. And in the space of social justice warriors on Twitter, I am weak. I wish we lived in a place of, like, where with equality and fairness, I could fight people to the death based on the things I believe in. Like in gladiators, like, stand in front of each other. As long as it's consensual, I would love to fight to the death for the ideas I believe in. But on Twitter, that's not the battleground of ideas. It's a weird place.
Well,
so
you're disconnected from actual real human interaction. It's an unnatural way to communicate. It's one of the things we were talking about Neuralink or something along those lines, that we could get to a place where you could actually read someone's thoughts. I mean, do you know how gross it would look if you could actually see virtue signaling and it's in an actual, like, clear manifestation? Like, oh, I see what you're doing. I read your mind. You're hoping someone's going to love you by saying mean things. You're hoping that women are going to say, thank you for being a champion of women, Mike. Like, for standing up. That Lex doesn't have enough of us on his podcast. We need equal representation. We need equality of outcome. And this is what identity politics is all about. It's all about calling people out. But really what it's about is finding targets and attacking. And very little gets done in a positive way. If you look at, like, what's the positive aspect of identity politics? Like, what's over the course of the last 5 years, what good has been done? Well, people are terrified. A lot of people have attacked people on Twitter, but how much good has been done?
Well, it's complicated. Like, I think about the reason. Okay, I always try to find the silver lining in things, and the way I think about it, first of all, I've become more conscious of the fact that there's douchebags in this world, in terms of there was a lot of sexism in academia, for example, just like boys club stuff, that it's just fundamentally disrespectful towards women. That's out there. There's douchebags, and they're often, how, like, Joe Biden touches like
people's hair.
Yeah. There's a creepiness to the way people behaved, and I think
well, they have power.
Power, yeah.
Right. Whenever people have power, they behave in a weird way. If you're a guy and you're a professor, like, traditionally, professors fuck their students, right? I mean, it's one of the most common things was, like, the professor and the graduate student.
Let's like rephrase that, because
I don't know. In the 60s, the 70s.
I don't know if that's traditional, but I have seen.
Okay, but we know it's
common.
Common. It was very, very, very common. Now it can get you in deep shit.
Yeah.
Now it can get you deplatformed. It can get you fired by the university.
It has a lot of downsides because you're getting in the way of love, but it has an upside that you're getting in the way of douchebags. So, like,
yes,
cancel culture. You have Jordan Peterson getting millions of views, highlighting the ridiculousness of cancel culture, but at the same time, cancel culture also helps highlight the real douchebags out there. The real,
yes,
the ridiculous aspects, the overextension of the Me Too movement is arguably worth the positives it created.
Ultimately.
So maybe not in the moment, but if
not to the people that were wrongly accused.
Right. But if you look 20 years from now, it would probably lead to progress.
Yeah, it's like saying Genghis Khan was good for trade. He opened up the path of trade to the east.
Well, I mean, people make the same argument for Hitler.
Yeah.
He rebuilt the German economy.
Yeah.
And so that argument, nobody makes the argument that like, on the overall, Hitler was good for the humanity.
No.
But like, so I don't think, but you know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think overall it's good. It's good that, listen, I'm not a woman working in an office with a boss that is treating me like shit and wants to fuck me and sexually harassing me. And I would imagine that would make your life hell. I can't imagine if I was a woman and I had to kiss some guy's ass in order to get a promotion, and this guy would make disgusting remarks about me and try to fuck me. It would, or worse, or actually physically do something to you. I would imagine it'd be terrible. So that, look, I'm fully in support of that. I have daughters, man. I don't want them to ever have to experience that kind of shit again. I'm glad that people, they have to be accountable for things like that. That we do make, I think workplaces in general, right? First of all, everybody, it sucks. No one wants to be stuck in some place all day. But also you have this weird culture in these workplaces where you're around all these other people, and these people you see sometimes more than you see your own family. You're around them 8 hours a day, and you don't even get to pick them, right? Yeah. They're just the people that you automatically work with. And if you're a woman and you're in a situation where you have to work with some man who has power over you and is abusive, it would be hell.
The workplace is kind of interesting because I don't know what to do with it, because a lot of people find love in the workplace.
Yeah, that's true too.
I, as a rule, never, I turn that part of my brain off at the workplace because I feel it's such a difficult game to play. But I've been hit on by coworkers, in a positive, not a power thing, but you're close.
Yeah.
You want to, and then I was always running away from that because what I imagine in my head is what happens when we break up.
Right.
What happens, what if we have a fight,
mm-hmm.
Which is human relations. The drama of that, it's hard to get right. And I think from an individual perspective, I think you shouldn't play victim. You should take the situation as it is and make sort of rise above it, whatever it is, whatever the challenge, whatever the difficulties, whatever of the situation you're in, you rise above it. That it's from the individual perspective, because life is hard. Succeeding in a career is hard, and to be stuck in the local optima of just of playing victim and the victimhood, I think for the individual is not productive. But as a society, that's a conversation we need to have. Who are the victims in our world, and how can we create a world that has fewer victims?
And one of the things that Jordan Peterson points out that I think is really important to mention is that we haven't been doing this office thing that long. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I should clarify. I don't know jack shit about working in an office. I never worked in an office in my life, but I couldn't imagine what it would be like. I understand people, but that's a weird thing, man. When men and women are sexually attracted to each other and they see each other every day like that, very weird. It's very weird. And to say that you have to turn that off, and it's admirable that you do, but some people don't. Some people don't. Some people have weird fucking fetishes towards people they work with.
So I'm a romantic in general.
Aww.
Okay, but I'm also a guy. People who hear me, especially your fans who think I'm beta. Fuck you.
You gotta stop reading the comments. I keep telling you.
I welcome you. Message me. Let's take it out on the mat. Okay. So I won't read the comments, but I'm just saying I'm not beta.
but you're actually challenging them to do jiu-jitsu. I'm
joking. It's a joke, unless you want to. Okay.
But if you're gonna read those comments, someone's gonna go, "All right, motherfucker, where do you
go.
roll?
Let's
where do
go.
You go?"
Broadway Jiu-Jitsu in Boston.
Don't say that.
Well, anyway,
you made a mistake right there.
But also, if you're interested in learning jiu-jitsu, go to Broadway Jiu-Jitsu in Boston, which every gym is struggling. But
are they open?
They're doing the dance that everybody is doing, which is like they're doing like socially distant training. Like,
how's that possible?
So in Massachusetts is different, but you could do private training, which means they have these slots of 1 hour where people show up and train. It's like, I think 3 people or like 2 people, they train and they keep, what do you call it? Every hour they do different sets of people.
Do they test everybody?
Temperature check. So they're doing everything the laws requires. So every state is doing different things.
But how effective is a temperature check? I mean, there's people that are asymptomatic. Do they have a high temperature?
It's not about what works and doesn't. I mean,
it's about complying.
It's about what. I mean, from my perspective, healthy people should do whatever the hell they want. Like, to me, I mean that. Let me rephrase that. Whoever's comfortable, like the level. I believe in freedom. We're in Texas.
Yes.
These water bottles are made in Texas.
Are they? Good.
That's crazy.
Awesome.
You should be able to choose your actions, and then people who are either have symptoms or people who are in a high risk category, they should stay home. They should be isolating themselves. But there should be a little bit more freedom to define how you interact with this world, especially at this time, especially where the curve is. But there's rules in Massachusetts that you're supposed to follow, and jiu-jitsu, they don't understand. They don't understand obviously combat sports or like, jiu-jitsu is essential for like a lot of people, like for their psychology.
Yeah,
there's people going nuts right now.
Yeah, it's part of who they are as a human. Yeah. It's part of their religion. Yeah,
and it was also part of the way of exercising out their demons.
Yes.
And now you have a lot of people sitting alone at home with their demons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's also a big part of their social life.
Social life,
huge part of their social life.
Huge.
And also physical touch. There's something about jiu-jitsu, like the physical touch of jiu-jitsu, it's very good for people. Even though you would think of it as like a violent interaction, there's actually so much camaraderie that's involved in jiu-jitsu. There's so much community. There's so much friendship and love in jiu-jitsu. You're practicing killing each other, but you're doing so with good friends who are equally skilled. Iron sharpens iron, and it's very important that you do, like, you want to roll with people that are challenging to you. You want them to be good. You want them to try really hard. It's a part of the whole thing, and you feel very blessed. Like, what happens after you're done rolling? You always thank each other and hug each other. I mean, that's part of the culture, and jiu-jitsu is a very friendly culture. It's one of the things that I love about Brazil and the Brazilians is that they're so friendly. It's like a big part of their culture. It's like a big part of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's like the way the instructor interacts with the students. It's very friendly, very friendly.
Yeah, and now that that's gone, what do you do?
I know, for a lot of people, they're going nuts.
You should go run. I recommend. That's why I went to the whole Goggins thing. I've been doing I'm going nuts by myself.
Well, explain what you did, because it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So first, I follow 2 people on Instagram, you and David Goggins, which is you for the lulz, for the laughs, and Goggins for like just to feel like a weak bitch every once in a while. And then at one point in the spring, I forget when it was, he posted something about a 48-hour challenge. So where you run 4 miles every 4 hours. So I did that. I never ran more than 22 miles before then. I just did it. Now, my whole methodology for doing these things is I announce it on Twitter, so that, like, in the moment,
you can't get out of it.
I can't get out of it. So like I saw the post on Instagram. I went to Twitter. I said it. I'm excited. In my head, I'm not thinking. I'm not allowing myself to think. I said, I'm just going to do it, and I'll figure out how to do it. And then, so I figured out how to do it. That was the worst idea ever. I don't recommend that.
4 miles every 4 hours. So how long does it take you to run 4 miles?
40 minutes, let's say.
So you have a 3 hour plus 20-minute rest in between each 4 mile run, and you're sleeping for 3 hours at a time, so you could get up and run.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a mental test of your ability to do something really stupid for prolonged periods of time. Like, because it's not like running 48 miles in one take. That's actually probably easier. The hard thing is run a little bit. 4 miles is pretty easy, especially at a slow pace. And then like shower. It depends. I mean, I showered almost every time, which is another thing that's hard to do because you're like constantly showering and you're like, oh, here we go. I almost didn't sleep at all. You slept like 1 hour at a time, really. And then I overate. So I was eating carnivore, still mostly eating carnivore at that time. So I was eating like, I ate a giant rotisserie chicken. Like your brain starts convincing you that you need like the energy for the fuel.
Right.
And so I felt like really bloated and like
you're running with a chicken in your stomach.
In my stomach. And then just like, and then all these demons come out. I mean, at least for me, just like you start like, I start thinking I need to delete the comment I did on Twitter. I need to, or like this is stupid. I'm a scientist. Like why are you, like your mind starts making up stuff. Like, why are you doing this? All of those demons. And then it starts saying things like, you have like all the papers you wrote are shit. Everything you ever done is shit. Oof. Like you need to work hard. Like why are you working so hard at this stupid running thing? You should be focused and doing the thing that you like, your career. You should be like all of those things. And then my parents come into place. Like you should find a wife, right? You should have kids. Like you talk about love all the time. Why are you fucking single? You fucking, like that's what.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually speak in those words, but that's
you feel it.
You feel it.
Yeah.
And then you feel the age thing. I mean, but like, you used to be able to wrestle. Like you've never beat anyone good at wrestling. You've never, like, your jiu-jitsu black belt, you don't deserve that black belt. Like all those thoughts are coming in. Right? And so, but anyway, that was the 48-hour challenge. And then on one day, I think in June, June, maybe at the end of May, I woke up and I had this idea. The brain is stupid. To say that, to tweet and say that I'll do as many push-ups and pull-ups as this tweet gets likes. I don't know why I thought that. I thought in my head, because I usually, I talk about love all the time, and I get like, I don't know, 100 likes, 500, I don't know, whatever I get, but it's not. I thought like, I need to get harder and need to start exercising every day again, and I thought I would get about maybe 1,000. So I ended up getting 20,000. Yeah. So I said in 30 days, right? And that's too much for me. That's too hard. So in my mind, I thought that. So I said, okay, let me distribute that across other exercise. I'll do it every day, but I'll distribute it across bodyweight squats too. So the idea is, coronavirus, I want to do stuff like I have a kettlebell too, maybe exercise I can do at home every single day. But the tweet said push-ups and pull-ups only. So and before then I've interacted with David quite a bit. So I sent him, yeah. So I sent them this thing and just saying like, here, I forget what I said. It was a basic message. Do you have any advice? And he sent me back a video of him. Oh, I asked him a few questions and he sent back a video of him answering the questions, calling me out of my bullshit. Because he said, you said in your tweet, push-ups and pull-ups, motherfucker, or however he talks. Like, he's like, if I were you, so he did the worst thing, which is like, if I were you, I would do what I promised. But I understand how things are. So if you like, so he went on to give me advice if I bitch out. So I end up, what else can you do? So I started doing push-ups and pull-ups. So it's it's 500 push-ups a day and 170 pull-ups a day, plus 6 miles running. And
Jesus.
I just started. Every single day
for a month.
For a month, yeah.
There you go.
Yes, this is the Instagram days, man. This is when I was like so proud of myself. I was proud of myself that I'm actually doing this. And I think day 3 is when it all just went to shit. That's when it went to shit. So I started getting a shoulder. So I stopped on day 7, I believe. and took 10 days off. So my shoulder started just overwhelmed with pain. And
did you get an MRI?
No. I know the shoulder. Like I've gotten this. It's overuse. It wasn't hurt. It was like I know this pain well. Like
where is it? What part of your shoulder?
It's complicated. It's like slightly in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I know the pain well from like I know it's an overuse thing. Like I did that when I trained judo twice a day. I know the pain. I know how to treat it, which is like ice. But like the reps are insane for people. People have done this kind of thing. So I gave myself 2 weeks to actually ramp up to it too. So like I have a good base on I know how to do push-ups and pull-ups, but that was way too much for me. The whole time, David motherfucking Goggins is with me either on the phone or email every single day, and he's doubling everything I'm doing. So, he's not doing the squats because he's just had knee surgery. So he's with surgery doing the push-ups and pull-ups.
What did he have done to his knee?
He doesn't like to talk about stuff like I couldn't get it. Because I think he probably just hurt his knee just for the haters to think he'll quit.
No.
Like, well, that's what
I know he had his knee drained.
Yeah, there was some problem.
He's one of those ignorer guys.
Yeah,
he got pains, he just ignores it. Yeah, what you got? Okay, let me see. Oh, this is them pulling. Okay, what does it say here? A lot of us think that just because there's an obstacle in the middle of the road. Oh, look at this. They're pulling all that fluid out of his knee. Ooh, what does it say? This is just talking about setbacks. Okay, here's more often than not. I've had bad knees, bad hips, etc. for 20 plus years. Not letting that stop me, and I won't now. In life, we must exhaust all options, find a way. Yeah, Jesus Christ. So he's draining multiple syringes of fluid out of his. Look at that nasty shit that's coming out of his fucking knee, man. How much fluid is in his knee? So the thing is, like, your knee is a physical structure, and I appreciate his mindset, but ultimately, if you're draining that much fluid out of your knee, you've got real internal problems. And you could fucking man through that shit, but you're still diminishing the physical structure of your knee.
Well, that's his whole philosophy, which is the point. There's a video, I think, like one or two.
Running like a week
one after
later.
This, he's like, "I'm back, motherfuckers," or something, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever he's doing.
He's running. Like, you scroll up a little bit. Scroll up. I'll show you what it is. Right there. That one. Play that.
To all you computer warriors, trolls, haters, I read your fucking messages on those videos I put up with me on my crutches, me getting my knees drained. You were happy I was fucking injured. You're also happy because you thought I'd never run again. All that, see, I told you. Tagging your friends shit. Bitch, you don't fucking know me. You see a 1 minute fucking video about me. You don't know how hard I train, how I live, the fucking dedication I put into my fucking life. So why do you troll? Maybe you're some fat motherfucker at home. Lazy, with no discipline or dedication. Maybe you're jealous. Who knows? But guarantee this. I'll be back better than ever. Ha ha! Fuck you!
Stay hard.
Fuck you, stay hard. He's the best. God damn, I love that dude. He is a treasure.
Yeah.
He's a treasure.
But like in this world where the reason I stopped actually posting about the thing I'm doing is what I realized, especially probably the community I'm in, so many people were telling me like, that's too much. Like, they were encouraging me to be healthy. They weren't understanding the whole point.
Yeah.
The philosophy of David Goggins, which is the point is to push the limits of what is healthy. This isn't to get, like, doing those kinds of reps is not for some kind of, like, to get back in shape. The moment I agreed to answer David Goggins's, like, email and then phone call, and then you're accepting not a nice way for, like trying
to up my cardiovascular routine.
It was to go through hell. So this is the first time David Dan Gable, famous wrestler, famous wrestling coach, talked about that he always tried to train so hard that he wouldn't be able to get off the mat, that he would have to be carried off the mat. And he said he never succeeded at that, but he always really tried to push so hard that he literally couldn't get off the mat.
And the results of that, we're talking about the physical structure. He has replaced hips, replaced knees. So his body fell apart.
The internet is very nice and helpful to tell you exactly that, which is your body will fall apart. That's not the right way to do it. When I got injured, people were like, just like you said, obviously you shouldn't be doing this, right? But that's not the point. That's not the point of this. Like, this is the first time I'm not a crier. I cried 3 times face down on my carpet in this whole challenge. So I was doing all of this at home. Just there's all different kinds of demons that came out, and just so if for people who know push-ups and pull-ups and done this kind of exercise, what happens is it's kind of your muscle get used to it. It's not physically that challenging. They're in the state of just complete exhaustion. And what it is, it's almost boring. So it's a task of your mind pushing through a thing that's really boring. Your muscles are exceptionally sore. They're exhausted. And again, all those demons of like, why are you doing this? It's like nobody will care if you just quit, all that kind of stuff. And dealing with all of that, that's why. Because it's about, depending on the day, but it's at least 2 hours of push-ups and pull-ups spread throughout the day. And it's a grind. And then I have Goggins on me about it, always doubling stuff. So after 10 days, I returned, and at that point, I did it without announcing it. I did it for 4 or 5 days to make sure I could do it. And at that point, I knew I'm going to have to finish, even with injury. So I knew after 10 days, the shoulder was back to normal. I figured out I figured out the eating that I'm doing. I figured out the whole recovery.
What'd you change in the eating?
It sounds weird, but I switched to 1 meal a day, which is before I sleep, which felt good. It's mostly keto. In terms of supplement, they're your sponsor actually. That's how I found them. Athletic Greens. Mm-hmm. They I don't know why, it makes me feel good. Like,
great stuff.
Yeah, like because the worry you have with keto, I'm not into nutrition science. I don't follow it. I just listen to my body. The worry you have is you don't get the nutrients. Like you don't get the
phytonutrients, plant-based nutrients,
and also importantly electrolytes. Because I'm running. Right. There's a because you get the headaches thing. You
ever take liquid IV? You ever try that stuff?
No.
I swear by that shit. I drink that every day.
Is that the actual?
It's just an electrolyte. Yeah, electrolyte supplement. It's a sponsor too, but even if it wasn't, if they stop being a sponsor, I'll still tell people to take it.
What is it supposed to? So they have like salt,
vitamins,
sodium, magnesium,
sodium, glucose, optimum ratio of sodium to glucose. Like very scientifically researched. It's fantastic shit, man. Changed the way I would always get cramps. And once I started using it, I stopped getting cramps. Like you think like hard kickboxing workouts, hard martial arts workouts, hill running, that kind of shit. Like you beat your body up, man. If you're not getting enough electrolytes, you're certainly draining them out of your system. And taking them in the form of liquid IV just made a big difference.
Are you still sticking to keto? Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm not. I don't eat keto, but I'm mostly carnivore. I eat some salads. And I eat some fruit, but the vast majority of what I eat is meat. The vast majority.
Yeah, that's
80, maybe 80+% of everything I eat is meat.
I don't know about you, but that's one of the things. I just stopped wanting to post about it because one, the exercise is insane, and two, my eating. I just don't. I like positive vibes.
People get angry.
Yeah. And not only just angry, they keep telling me it's unhealthy. And I've experimented. I've wrestled my whole life. I understand what peak performance is on different diets. Like, I know my body. I've explored and, learned about what feels good for me. I'm not saying it's good for others. I've experimented with eating, 7 times a day when I was more doing, powerlifting stuff. I've experimented. For me, eating once a day or eating twice a day in a small window, like intermittent fasting, very low carb. I do two things in my life, which is Goggins type challenges, which is doing like physical challenges, and then long periods of deep thinking, deep work, so intellectual work. For me, keto and once a day focuses the mind like nothing else. It allows me to sit for 8 hours at a time. So I usually do 2 4-hour periods of deep work. So you shut off every distraction and completely focus yourself on a single task. Nothing like keto for me. The interesting thing, I know that about myself. What I wasn't really sure is with the push-up and pull-up thing. What is the right supplementation for that? And I wasn't sure, but I stuck to it. I stuck to basically entirely carnivore. I would say under 20 grams of carbs, maybe even under 10 grams of carbs on some days, and mostly just a lot of meat. I wasn't calorie deficit. I actually got a little fatter.
Really?
Yeah, so I was
That's crazy.
I was starving. Okay, this sounds. Please don't clip this out. But I was starving. I was starving for meat. Like I would remember waking up wanting a bloody steak in the middle of the night.
Well, but your tissue must be so everything must need nutrients so badly, so much protein. You're breaking everything down. That's such an extreme requirement of your body to do something like that.
It's not crazy. We're not talking about David Goggins took it to the extreme, of course, but
doubling everything you do.
It's just insane. So 1,000 push-ups is different than 500 push-ups. So 500 is doable for it's just 1,000 is insane. And also I didn't, there's certain things on form, I didn't go all the way down on the pull-ups. I did a form of pull up with my hands closer together, just
to save your shoulder.
To save the shoulder. So I made sure this isn't to prove anybody to. That's the other thing. When I posted videos of myself doing push-ups and pull-ups, that's why I stopped. Is people will tell me that the form.
Stop reading the comments.
Now,
how many times during this podcast have you talked about people saying things to you in the comments and it upsetting you?
Well.
It's been 10.
Well, help me out with something then.
Okay.
The reality is that a lot of other really intelligent people read the comments.
You mean Eric? Eric Weinstein?
Eric Weinstein.
I told him stop reading them too.
No, but
that motherfucker complains constantly about comments.
But the thing is, yes, that's a good. But so the difference in you and I is one important thing is I do hope to be one of the technologists that either creates a competitor to Twitter or helps Twitter become a better version of itself. So I want to create the systems that create that community in the comments that's positive. So for me, it's important to understand that the demon's in there.
Well, you're going to have to fundamentally change the way human beings interact with each other with no repercussions. When people have no repercussions, they interact anonymously. There's just a fundamental aspect of cruelty that emerges. There's no getting around it.
I disagree. I think I don't disagree. I think the fundamental thing that happens is some small percentage of humans start becoming toxic.
Yes.
And that drives away what I believe is the majority of the population who are therefore friendly, the kind of conversations you have at parties in person.
No, listen, I agree with you 100%. Most of the interactions that I have online, even when I stop reading comments, were positive. The vast majority. When you cultivate, one of the things that I've tried to do with this podcast is talk to people the way I talk to people in real life, warts and all. The vast majority of my interactions in real life are positive. The vast majority are happy. Occasionally they're not. Occasionally someone's a fucking dick, and that's just what you run into dickheads sometimes. It sucks and it's annoying, but it's a part of life. My internet feed based on this podcast, based on how people get to know me, reflected that. It's mostly positive. It's mostly people recognizing what my intentions are. My intentions are to try to get out of the way as much as possible, put together the best podcast I can, do my best, try to be curious, Try to feed my curiosity. Just do my best.
Open-minded, kind, loving.
Yes,
that's
me.
radiate. Okay,
and help people and promote people. That's another really big part for me is promote people.
Yep.
Like let them help them succeed because I feel good about that. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, like who the hell am I? Like for some reason you see stuff in people, and then you share like selflessly. You promote them. Like you do that with comedians. You do that with a lot of even Eric Weinstein. One of the incredibly brilliant Jordan Peterson could be argued that he was really propelled forward by a conversation on your podcast. I mean,
I'm happy to do that. It makes me feel good. It's one of the most important parts of this podcast, I think, that I can introduce. And in doing so, it also enriches other people because you get to hear these interesting conversations and it stimulates their mind and it changes the way they think about certain things. So the vast majority of interactions that I had online, even before I stopped reading comments, were positive. The problem is you start dwelling on the ones that aren't, like you're doing in this podcast. You're literally telling me everything that's wrong with reading comments by telling me you reading comments and then complaining about the things that people say about your form, or the things say about you not having enough women on your podcast, or the people say you're a beta. You're going over and over and over again. For no reason.
That's interesting.
But all of those things are completely unnecessary, and you're going to fight me on it right now because I see you're gearing up.
Yeah, I'm gearing up.
You're gearing up for some sort of a response.
Yeah. I've been gearing up. Okay. First of all, let me put it, because it's more fun to talk about the negative stuff.
Yes.
Most of my life, the reason I read comments is I've met incredible people. I'm currently with a very small level of celebrity. I'm fortunate enough to have people that are just full of love. Two things: love and intelligence. Like they make me think. They inspire me. There's incredible people, and that's why I read the comments still, for now at least. I did hire somebody to help me, like fight the trolls, but because you can remove comments and so on. That I don't think that's a long-term solution. I think the long-term solution is technology. Here's the fundamental problem. I think that 99% of Joe Rogan fans, you can say any kind of percentage, are people I would want to hang out with at a party and talk with.
I think so too.
And I think the comment section should reflect that. I think it's a technology problem. I think what happens is the 1% that I don't really want to hang out with dominate the conversation in the comment section. I don't think
they're more inclined to comment.
It's a bunch of things. They're better at commenting the kind of derisive, funny thing. Like there's a mix of humor and derision, which somehow attracts a certain part in us as like people who click like. Like somebody, this is a new studio, or I was saying how this studio is kind of like the Cybertruck release. There's something in people where they want to like the funny derisive comment about the way the new studio looks, for example. When you look at comments about your new studio, there's a humongous amount of really positive comments. But like the ones, like the negative ones, and they're not even negative, they're more like just like shitty in a funny way. Mm-hmm. They rise to the top. That's a technology problem, because like that shitty comment drives away people like me from commenting. I want to comment. I still comment.
Just comment. I'm telling you, you're wasting so much time thinking about this.
No, I disagree. No? I think there's a place for community on the internet.
Yeah, there is.
And if commenting is, call it something else. Call it social media interactions. Like most people at some level of celebrity stop checking their Twitter, like mentions, Twitter comments, and so on, because of the toxicity. The top comments on Donald Trump, or the top comments on Bill Gates, or the top comments on Obama accounts, if you look at them, pedophilia is usually involved. And it's like, if I'm Barack Obama, why would I want to interact in the comments with a community that were like...
Well, you can turn your comments off.
Yeah, but what I'm telling you is, okay, you're telling me...
That's death, though, right?
You're accepting, you're censoring people now. They get insane.
Well, they just become accustomed to being able to speak as well.
Yeah.
So that's part of the thing, like on Instagram. It's not just that you post something. It's that other people get to post things as well.
Yeah. And it's like I try to fight. Like I comment, you're the only person on Instagram who I comment on.
Oh boy.
Because they're fun. There's a fun community there.
Okay.
And I ignore, like, I actually train my brain to ignore any of the haters. Like, there's fun, really loving, intelligent people. That should be the community.
Yes,
like
I
I've
agree.
been okay. No, but you don't agree because you
No, that should be the community. I agree with that
that.
sentiment.
But it isn't currently, and I think that could be.
But it is the vast majority. It's just the kind of people that comment in the first place. Okay, let's just do a thought experiment. If you have if you have 1 million people on your Twitter and they're all fans of your podcast, you have 1 million podcast fans. How many of them are going to comment? How many? How often do you said you only comment on my page? How many people comment on people's pages? How many people that have enriching important, difficult lives where they're filled with challenges take the time to comment shitty things on internet?
Not a large number.
Very few. Mm-hmm. Most of the people they have unrealized potential, and they're not doing well.
Okay, can I propose a different thought experiment?
Sure.
How many people out of those 1 million that listen to the podcast, mine or yours, that have an intelligent, interesting thought that occurs when they listen, and they would share it with me if it was one-on-one? If I was
quite a few, yeah.
That's my problem. Like, I think,
right.
Like, I would like them to feel safe to say something.
Yeah, then they should be. It's just they're going to have to deal with trolls.
But you're accepting the way things are now, and I'm saying I think there's a technological solution that I'm constantly.
But that's what Neuralink is. Neuralink is the future versions of it that actually allow you to read minds. I mean, that's the technological solution. To realize that this person's flawed because they were abused by their uncle, or they got bullied throughout childhood, or they have a disease, or they're impaired mentally. There's something wrong with them. I mean, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a lot of these people that are online that are angry. Their lives are not good. You're not getting people that live amazing lives that spend the vast majority of the day shitting on people on the internet. But I go to some people's Twitter pages and I see them all day long saying mean shit, all day long arguing about things, all day long complaining about things. And it's the vast majority of their social interaction. It has to be, just based on volume. It's super unhealthy.
But I feel, it might be optimistic, but I think those people, if you put a mirror to them, meaning you make them realize that that they're being toxic, that they could be incentivized, they could be encouraged to find the better angels of their nature.
They could be. But a lot of times that toxicity is coming out of a lot of other flaws in their life and their personality. Like you're talking about, you're thinking in terms of your own self. You're a guy who did this fucking ridiculous 30-day challenge. You're a guy who's running 4 miles every 4 hours. Like that's not a normal human being. Yeah. You're a guy who's constantly trying to improve. You're a guy who's sitting down every day, turning off all your distractions and doing deep intellectual work. That is not most people. Now, if you could acquire a group of people that are your fans that have similar goals and similar discipline, that would be amazing. But they would be your friends. That's what ultimately we would like. We would like all our interactions with people online to be people that we love and care about. People that share like-minded goals. People that you actually can learn from them. You can listen to their words and see their deeds and see how they react to certain things and see how they grow and change. And you actually benefit from this interaction. There's a lot of people that are online that are not they're not capable of that for whatever reason, whether it's programming, meaning like what's happened to them in their life that's led them to this point, whatever failures or insurmountable obstacles that have shown up in their life that have caused them to fall into this rut. That's what you get. You just get the numbers of humans you're interacting with online. There's so many people. And then also you get no social cues. You don't feel bad when you say mean things to people. You could say, hey, man, you sucked on that show. And you're like, oh, I thought it was a good episode. Yeah. Fuck, did I suck on your show? Yeah. And that hurts people. It bothers people, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bother you. They're trying to lash out at you. And the type of people that try to do that are overwhelmingly losers.
But I have a dream. There's 10 million plus people that like the Joe Rogan experience and are really cool people. I meet them all the time.
Sure.
And I would love to go to the comment section and be inspired by the positive, thoughtful energies or even disagreements that come from a place of respect and love. Like, I go to books for that. For example, I read books that are full of thoughtful disagreement or just like respectful, deep thinking. I go to comments too, because they currently, for me, have 99% of them are that.
Okay, but let me stop you there. Yeah. This is really important. That's not what you're talking about. What you're talking about is the negative ones. Yeah. All you've talked about is the negative ones. You haven't said anything about the positive ones. You haven't said anything about going to the comment section, reading inspiring things. You haven't said anything about going to the comment section, reading helpful thoughts and strategies and different things that people have said in the comments that have really inspired you. You haven't said anything about that, but you said at least 3 or 4 different things about negative comments that people said, to the point where you're challenging people to fight. You're giving out the address of your jiu-jitsu school.
It's for fun.
Don't listen. You're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whether it's for fun or not, you're doing what you're doing. You're dwelling on the negative so much that you're literally telling people where you train. You understand that?
Yeah, I understand it. I mean, part of that. So you're doing a good job from a psychoanalyst perspective, but part of that is for fun.
I understand it's for fun.
They definitely have a disproportionate effect, especially for a person who's not like, I'm genetically full of self-doubt. I think of myself often as a fraud. Like there's a kind
No, that's not full of self-doubt. You know what that is? You just have high expectations of your own performance.
Right.
That I do too. Listen, I'm not a fan of anything I do. I'm the biggest critic of everything I do ever. That's just how it goes. I'm never satisfied. But that's also why I continue to do things.
And the toxic negative comments connect to that little part of you, or part of me. And I'm bringing up the fact that I feel like the only solution cannot be not to read comments. For now, that is the wise advice. You're giving wise advice not to.
But you have to deal with the landscape. This is the landscape as it's presented to you. You can't imagine a better world where there's no real solution. Well, because there's no technological solution to avoid the trolls.
But here's the thing. So I'm trying to build it.
How are you going to build it?
Well, I mean...
without giving away any intellectual secrets.
Well, I think systems that know more about you as a human in order to be able to incentivize better how to be a better human are needed. So currently the AI systems, the recommender systems that feed most of the social networks, YouTube, Netflix, and so on, they know very little about you. They have a very primitive capture of who you are as a human that ultimately leads to your purchasing behavior. They don't understand about your set of beliefs, the source of toxicity, the source of pain, of how to put you on a trajectory that improves you as a human. I think that's an AI problem. I think that's a recommender system, what's called problem. And that's where I've been working on. I'm failing at it. I've been at a pretty low point, actually, psychologically. But that's a dream for me. So the thing that I've talked about before, which is like building an AI girlfriend, is not a correct way to phrase it. It's more about AI systems being able to know you well. Mm-hmm. And be an assistant, to form a connection with you in order to help you become the best version of yourself. That's what friends do. That's what girlfriends, partners do. That's what I think AI systems can do.
I think it's possible. And I also think that when we get to the next generation of technologies, and this is, we're already almost at 3 hours here. I want to talk to you about, you were there for the Neuralink experiment, the most recent demonstration where they used it on a pig. Tell me, like, what was that like? And there's the pig. What?
First of all, the pigs were very happy. Like what they said in that presentation was pretty accurate. They love food, and they seemed happy. And the caretakers there seemed like really good people.
And where's the implant on the pig? Can you see it physically?
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on which one we're looking at. I think one of them they showed 3. One I think didn't have it. One had it and already had it removed, and the other one I think it was still actively in it. So I don't remember them actually showing like, here it is.
And what was the demonstration? Like, how did they demonstrate how it worked?
Well, So first of all, I should say that I have no insider information. I should like this is very much they're a company. Okay, I'm just some random dude that showed up.
Well, you've interviewed Elon before. You know him.
But I'm not. I don't have any insider information, and more importantly, I'm an AI person, so I'm not a neurobiologist. Like, this was really exciting to me as a spectator to see biological systems, pigs,
right,
that are interacting with computational systems.
But what I'm asking is, what was the demonstration?
The actual demonstration was, at the first level, was that they successfully implanted Neuralink in a pig. The pig seemed to be doing great. And then they also showed a pig that had it taken out. That's at one level.
But what was going on with the pig that had Neuralink? Was there any demonstration of what it was doing for the pig?
They were doing playback of the 124. So there's 124 channels, like the electrodes that connect to the brain that are firing. They're measuring the signals from neurons. And that's time on the x-axis. So from left to right, that's time. And then vertically, that's the 124 points that are lighting up when a neuron is firing. And they were playing that back, and they played it back in such a way where they convert the signal into like musical notes so you can hear the signal. It's another way to visualize it. But, you know, it's showing that it's effectively being able to read the signal from 100, I'm not sure if I was saying 100. I meant 1,000 neurons, or 1,000 collection of neurons from the brain. So that's 2 orders of magnitude. That's a lot more than any other device has ever done. So like being able to, you know, get signals from the brain at a high resolution. I mean, one day, I think the vision is that 1,000, just like you mentioned with the TVs, a resolution of 1,000 is very low. It would be millions or billions or trillions like it is for LCD displays. But this is already a really effective.
Yeah, eventually your brain's just going to be filled with wires.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go, what do we need this brain for? We can just come up with an artificial brain. And you're not even going to notice. We can go to sleep.
It'll be gradual. It'll be all gradual. It'll be same with, I mean, it's a chase of technologies. This might be obsolete and useless by the time we all live in a virtual reality world.
But this is what I was thinking when it comes to aliens. When you look at the alien, the archetypal alien, what do you see? You see something with a big head, big eyes, no genitals. You know, you see no muscles. You see just like a frame, just this weird structure. And I wonder if we're going to get to a point where we start replacing things and improving things, and we realize, well, there's some problems with our system, and one of the problems is mating. One of the problems is testosterone and estrogen and emotions and all these different things that, you know, the desire to control property and boundaries and all the different things, the territories, all the different things that make people tribal, all the different things that make people angry. And maybe that's what's going to get in the way of innovation. Maybe we're going to get to a point where there's going to be some sort of mind-sharing technology. That's why they have big fucking heads, right? Maybe there's going to be some sort of interaction technology, some vastly improved thing that's going to make regular biological functions seem so obsolete that we're going to be readily cast them aside. Or maybe we'll cast them aside slowly and gradually, like the evolution of the eyeball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the flip side, you know, in the Neuralink presentation, they talked about alleviating human suffering, for example. To me, one concern is, you know, all the things, the tribalism, all the, toxic masculinity, or all the things we see as negative, they could be features. Like, there is a need for suffering, there's a need of tension, there's a need of violence and war for us to figure ourselves out. That sort of removing all the suffering, it may not be as productive as we think.
Well, it certainly creates competition, and competition creates improvement. I mean, this is that's the thing about if everyone just got along and everything was fine and perfect, would there be as much innovation? And if ultimately this human being, this creature, this when you look at the overall the goal of this thing, as I was saying before, it seems that the goal of this thing is to make better stuff. Well, the best way to make better stuff is to have some motivation to do that. And That's where materialism comes in. That's where sex comes in. That's where greed and envy, all these different emotions that we think are very bad. But generally speaking, if you talked about those emotions to people, they would say they're negative. They would put them in a negative connotation. But they might be what's powering people to move into this direction with more speed.
Yeah, and we all need to be trying to figure that out. And mortality is a big part of the picture. People that talk about immortality, it feels like imagine if Joe Biden and Donald Trump like lived forever. We would have Clinton, Trump, like we have these families just like forever running our world. I mean, one of the things that makes this world run is the passing away of previous generations, of previous systems of thought. And so you have to always consider like the things we see as negative, as that make up our psychology, make up different characteristics of human civilizations, are positive in some sense. That wars create progress. They create suffering, but they also create progress. They create beautiful music and art. They create the bonds of love and friendship like nothing else in this world. Conflict and suffering, the finiteness of life kind of makes life worth living for many people.
That is part of the problem, right? Like, in order to really appreciate the light, you got to experience the darkness. You have to know the darkness is real.
And one of the exciting things about like Neuralink, understanding our mind, is not alleviating suffering, but enriching the way we experience the world. So like enriching the way we experience suffering, expanding the way we can experience the highs and the lows. It's expanding our consciousness. It's doing the thing that you jokingly said with mushrooms.
Yeah.
But basically doing what mushrooms do, but in a controlled and much more powerful way.
Well, maybe something can transcend this biological limitation that we're discussing of being a human, and that through this innovation, we can reach some point where there's a different motivation. And this other motivation might be all peace and love. It might be. It might be that this motivation through this thing, if we can somehow or another suppress all the negative aspects of our biology and enhance all the positive aspects of camaraderie and love and friendship, and do so in a way that's tangible for everybody. That's another problem with things like Neuralink. Like, how much is this going to cost, and how much is this going to separate the haves from the have-nots? Elon was telling me when he was discussing on the podcast, he said you're going to be so much more productive if you have it. Well, people who are more productive are more successful. And if you need a lot of money in order to get it done, and then you get it done and you're more productive and then more successful, ultimately it's going to create a wider and wider gap between people who have everything and people who have nothing.
If that individual productivity results in the increase of the gap, but it can also potentially, just like the individuals who have created some incredible technology in this world, you think about Ford, you think about Steve Jobs and even Elon Musk, they're individuals. They're super weird, intelligent, and productive, but they ultimately created a better world with the inventions they made. So, it's possible that the productivity of those individuals actually creates, lifts all boats. That it creates ultimately a better world, and as that process goes on, more and more people will be able to afford these technologies. So like the lead adopters, the people that get it in the beginning, might have a disproportionate advantage, but that disproportionate advantage doesn't necessarily create a negative outcome for the world. If David Fraber, what he saw was actually a thing trying to communicate that, like, as Elon said, love is the answer. Say the aliens were trying to communicate love is the answer, and here's this badass pilot, Top Gun, like Tom Cruise character, who just like wasn't sure if he was going to shoot it or not, kind of thing, and wanted to fly it, but it was just saying like love is the answer. Maybe when you expand the mind, maybe if he was on shrooms or with Neuralink, you'll be able to see that communication, and ultimately the thing you'll be able to see will be good for society. So like, it's not, you won't, just because you'll be more productive, you won't try to get a bigger yacht, bigger house, better cars, but you'll see that we're like all a connected being, connected consciousness, and that extra productivity you get will result in you helping others more effectively. That's a real possibility too. And I have faith in the smart people working on technology. People kind of tend to be negative about technology, but I'm one of them, and I work with a lot of them. The people who are best at creating new ideas have they almost always have good intentions, but that's not enough. They very often are good at doing good for the world. So I have hope that the best people creating this technology at Neuralink, certainly the people I've interacted with, are going to be aware of the negatives and are going to work their ass off to make a better world. One of the most impressive things to me about people say like negative stuff about Elon and so on. One of the most impressive things about Neuralink and the people I've interacted with at Tesla and all these companies is like there's a passion in their eyes. These are some of the best people in the world at just being kids and loving what they do. Like, it's hard to put into words, but when you see that, like, that's what I see with you with comedy. Like, I don't know what the fuck, I don't know anything about comedy. I'm just a spectator, but there's a joy that I love seeing people who are good at what they do and love what they do and just losing themselves in it. I have faith that when you give those people the power to do what they want to do, that it'll create a better world. And that's what Elon is doing. And that's what I wish more companies and groups were doing. That I wish the U.S. government would do that more. Of have leaders that attract those weird, passionate people that are like just have this fire in their eyes. I remember the early days at Tesla with the first Gigafactory opening. I happened to be there, because I had to give a talk, and it was like 3 p.m, and the people working there at that factory in the middle of the desert, the excitement in their eyes was these ladies that they look like they haven't slept for days, but there was just this glimmer of just love for what they do. And I was like, that gives me faith that if these people are building our future, they're going to do a pretty good job.
Beautiful.
Wait, can I just say one thing?
Sing.
Okay. A poem thing. A lot of people ask me to sing again because of my sexy voice. No, they didn't. Nobody. My mom was like, okay. Even my mom didn't say it. Maybe that second song. Maybe play piano or something. No. I just want to say, because we're talking about love. My grandmother passed away just several days ago, and for me, okay, everybody's different, but for me, she was one of the key people in my life that raised me. She is responsible for much of the good that I am. So she lived through Holodomor in the early 30s. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Most people think about the Holocaust or the atrocity of the 20th century, but Holodomor in Ukraine was when, basically because of the decisions that Stalin made, millions of people starved. There's stories, that's for another time. If you want to really hear about it, ask Jordan Peterson about it.
I have. We've talked about it.
And there's stories where it's thousands of people practiced cannibalism. They ate their children. So this is what just to give you a context of what starvation does to the human beings, right? So she lived through that. She lived through World War II, this beautiful teenage woman in Nazi-occupied city. So all of that. And she never talked about it. She was a bad motherfucker. And she was the person that inspired me to be strong, and a person that also to put love out there, because she loved her husband that passed away in the 80s, but it was always radiated this deep love for other human beings that was forever. The reason I talk about love a lot is she made it okay for me. My dad. Sorry to go on tangents, but my dad is this witty Jew who who's afraid to say anything. Now, he's kind of like Eric Weinstein. He's like brilliant. He says stuff that's really interesting and clever. My grandmother taught me that sometimes it's okay to say the cliche, simple thing. You don't always have to be super intelligent, super interesting, super complicated and eloquent. You can just talk about love and talk simply, even if it's a cliche thing. So I don't know. She was 91, and I just wanted to say in this podcast that she's I miss her, and she's the reason for any good that I am. She's highly responsible for that. So I miss you. I love you. Not you, Joe. My grandma.
I get it. No.
I don't know if there's a poem I want to do, but okay.
Do you not want to do it? Or do it.
No, I'll do. It's so there's a bunch of Russian poems that I think I shouldn't, but the poem "If" by Kipling.
Okay.
I'd love to read it. If
Sure.
It's okay. It's a minute.
Okay. Stop fucking with that.
All right, fuck you. I'm nervous, man.
You should be.
I
You're
feel
about
like,
to read a poem in front of millions of people.
and I'm speaking for the woman that probably is looking down, shaking her head like, what are you doing? Drink vodka, shut the hell up. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves they make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth, and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my grandson. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.